Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome back to another one of my interviews here on Drip Talk with Blake Roberts. Today I have a very special guest with me. He is no other than a former pro wrestler who has wrestled in the companies TNA, WWF, FCW, NWA, FOW, CCW, and much more. He is a two-time CCW Tag Team Champion with Bruno Sassi. He was part of the tag team Phi Delta Slam in TNA and indie scene with Bruno Sassi. He was also security for TNA's faction Main Event Mafia and Mick Foley in TNA. And he was famously known for the ECW reunion show TNA Hardcore Justice 2010 as Blue Meanies fill-in during the Raven versus Tommy Dreamer match. So he is no other than Big Blue Tilly, Big Rocco, Tilquist. So we will get him on in here, and then we'll start on with the interview.
How you doing, boss? How's everything going?
Hope you doing good. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. Thank you so much for asking.
I appreciate you for coming on here.
My pleasure, bud. My pleasure. Am I a little too dark in here, or can you see me?
I can see you just perfect.
Cool beans. All right, my friend. What would you like to talk about?
All right. So the first question I'll ask you is, when did you start getting into the wrestling business, and what made you just really want to do it?
I graduated high school in '86. Went to walk on in Florida. Tried to play football. Hurt my knee. So I'm like, yeah, I'll come see you. And I came down, and there was a ring, and they were bouncing around in it. And I jumped in, and within 30 seconds, I knocked myself out. I got a concussion because I whacked my head against the ring, the floor, the mat. And then after that, I was just hooked. And 3 months later, I was having my first match.
Sweet. And how did it feel going into your first match? Were you nervous? I'm guessing. And
like, buddy, what was? To be honest with you, man, it was just like going to college. You're around a bunch of good guys, and it was, you were more hyped than anything than nervous because, like you said, it's the way the business is now. It's, you know what you're doing, you know what's happening. You still get hurt and stuff, but it just, the first match after that, it was in my blood. So I couldn't get it out. So,
of course, yeah. Did you watch wrestling as a kid? If so, who were like some of your favorites growing up?
Was born in New Jersey, moved here about '77. So when we lived up north, you got to see Saturday night main event, 12 o'clock up north. So I got to watch, and that's when, Hogan and all these guys would wrestle in gymnasiums, high school gymnasiums. There was those, those stadiums. So when we moved to Florida, I was 10 years old, and I sat down and I turned on Channel 2 at 12 o'clock, and it was Florida Championship Wrestling, and first time I seen Dusty Rhodes, and that I was hooked until the age of 58 now. So it's just, once you do it, it's in your blood, regardless of bad times, good times. It's just just a great life to have, and I got to experience it, so it was very cool.
Right. And mentioning Dusty Rhodes, you told me a story earlier that, and then you finally got to work with him, watching him growing up, and then you finally got to work with him. What was that like, getting to finally seeing him like a childhood hero on the screen, and then finally getting to work?
Yeah, they always say never meet your heroes, and let me tell you something, farthest from the truth. He was just, if anybody's watching that knows your dream, it didn't know him to love him. It takes a lot for him to befriend you, but once he befriends you, your family. And like you said, he took care of Bruno and I for a long, long, long time. And then when he left to go to WWE, we stayed in TNA. And Rich Pritchard, everybody there took really, really good care of us, because of the relationship, I'm sure, that we had with Dusty.
Yeah, of course. Do you still watch the business today? Do you keep up with it?
I do, just because there's still some friends that are still bopping around up there and going on. I started watching AEW, and I got a lot of friends up there. Basically, all the production team from TNA's, with AEW. So we get a lot. I like what they do with AEW. And again, God bless Tony Khan for starting and somewhere else to go besides up north. And it's just the only thing I wish that Tony would do. And like I said, I'm nobody, production or whatever, but just stay with a strong talent pool instead of just drop, every 3 weeks. Oh God, I'm trying to get into this guy, and then you don't see him for 3 months, and then he comes back and he's main event. That's the only thing I see. I mean, it's easy to sit in a chair and armchair, but it's just and like I said, this with Vince, you knew what you were getting with Vince. A to B, A to Z. That's the way it was. With them TKO having it, or it's broadening their horizons and doing a lot of stuff. People that you would never ever see in the Fed that are there now. Like you said, Motor City Machine Guns, great guys.
Yep.
Give their body up every night they go out. And when they got the push up there, I was very, very happy. Because like I said, TNA, great guys, but up there, and it seemed like they're getting a little traction now. So I'm hoping they keep the machine going and let them, take a little bit more steps to where they should be.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely with Motor City Machine Guns, because they won the tag team titles not that long after.
Right? Was it the first night they were there? I thought they won it, or second night they won it.
Possibly.
I can't remember, but it was a surprise and it was good. So it was nice.
Yeah, and it was. But it was really quick when they got in. So
yes, sir.
Yeah. Who were some of your wrestling trainers that helped you get into the business?
Believe it or not, I was again blessed when I got into the business. It was I don't know if you know Jerry Gray. He was one of the Mighty Yankees with Bob Cook, tag team champions, Florida champion of wrestling, and then I was very blessed. I took to it really quickly, but then Bugsy McGraw, Blackjack Mulligan, all these guys that ran, all the independents. So we got to hook up with them, and being big guys, Bruno and I could bump. So everybody loved working with us because we're 6 foot, 6'1" and 300 pounds, 350. And, we can bump all over the mat. So we just got very blessed, and we progressed really quickly into running, up and down the coast when there was a territory. So, we wrestled probably 30 fairs a year. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
That was the biggest thing back then. It was just that you just ran straight up Florida to Georgia, straight up to Tennessee, South Carolina, and then you come right back down again. So it's, there's no territories like it used to be, because you could work. You could really work 4 or 5 nights a week back then. If you just, if you could drive, 1,000 miles a week, you could work it. So,
right. They kept you really busy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like I said, it's, I always say, man, money, low. They always talk about the boys. Some people don't like saying it. Some people do like saying it. But you know what? That's what made it, the brotherhood back then and what it was. And, it's just, automatic respect. Walked in the locker room, you shook everybody's hand before you sat down. And, and then you trusted them. And who trained you. And you just went in there and tore the house down every night that you could. Always trying to be, we'd rather be first or last. We'd rather be a curtain jerker and make them follow us, or bring down the house at the end. So that was, was always a blast. Yeah. So, but like I said, very blessed. Like I said, started in late or mid '87, and like I said, 2014 is when my son was born. So I stopped, for a while. Yeah. I've done stuff here and there with other people, but just to get in the ring anymore, being 59 and 300 pounds, is no knees and back ain't going anymore.
Yeah, definitely. From all the stuff that from the back in the day ring stuff that you did, your body's probably
if I could write a book, and everybody says, "Oh, I'll write a book if I'm a wrestler," the stuff that goes on now, you got finished wrestling, you went to the bar, 18, 19, 20 years old. That's what you did. Now, like I said, and again, it's no disrespect to anybody. Now, after the match, they go home, and the guys on the roster, they go and they play Xbox. It's just a whole different world now. You know what I mean? We drove in a car for $25 for 4 guys, or $25 for 4 guys. You know what I mean? And now the guys up there are all making 6-7 figures plus. So God bless them. They definitely earned it. There's no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, the company I work for as a backstage interviewer, I go to the bar after with the whole crew. I'm only 16, but I mean, I go there, get food, and then hang out with the crew, and then
a lot of guys like that. A lot of guys like that. As long as you hate to say it like this, as long as you don't talk wrestling, you can sit next to Hulk Hogan and you talk for hours as long as you don't bring up, oh, remember when you power slammed? You know, it just they just want to sit and talk. Like I said, Jimmy Hart's a very dear good friend of mine. And like I said, we get together, man. The last thing that we talk about is wrestling. It's just everything else that's going on. Guy's 80 years old and he's still traveling 250 days a year. He's even got busier since they sold. So, you know, God bless him.
Yeah, right. And then what I heard, he's always there early helping set up and stuff. And
Buddy,
it's like,
grabbing the ring at 80 years old and putting it together. Like these guys have been in the business 6 months and sitting down on their phones. And I'm just like, and this is why, again, no disrespect. This is why this is where you're going to stay. Because the backbone of wrestling is you go to an independent show and you'll see guys that have been in the business 25, 30 years putting a ring together. And then that's, you know, then you got these guys that are hot-shotting in 8 months, a year in the business and got all the pictures and all the flair and they're sitting down. And then they want to know when they come out, they're all sitting on their hands. So, you know, it's a different animal and breed from 80s, 90s to now.
I agree.
You know, it's hard. But like you said, it's, you know, to see the crowds they draw every Monday, you know what I mean, every pay-per-view, you know, AEW going over to, you know, to London and only being, a couple of years old company and selling 90,000 tickets. I mean, that just goes to show you wrestling. You know, they go, oh, it's just as good as the Attitude Area. No, it's not, but it's as popular as it is back, you know, as it was in the 90s. So, you know, you're not going to get a strong presence like a Stone Cold or Kevin Nash, you know what I mean? Or, you know, even badass Billy Gunn. I mean, the guy's 60 years old. We started in the business together. Me, you know, and Ron and Don Harris, the Harris brothers, you know, DOA.
Yep.
And, you know, we all started in the business together. And like I said, Kip looks better now than he did when he was 22 years old. And God bless him. You know, like you said, his kids are doing great. It's so great to see him because I was there when they were born. You know, and now they're, you know, and like I said, it's just great to see because they carry their dad's attitude, they carry their dad's passion, and you can see it. And like you said, and Kip is probably one. I know he's not gonna like to hear this, but Kip's one of the nicest guys in the world. But you got to know him for him to talk to you. If not, he's not gonna waste his time. Hate to say it like that, but what it is. So.
I mean, I met him at WrestleCon in Las Vegas. He was super nice. Billy Gunn. And I also met his son, one of his sons. I think it was Colton, and he was super nice too. So
good boys. Good, like you said, good mother, good stepmother. Both good ladies, and take care of his kids. So they're very blessed.
Yeah.
So I think they know it.
Definitely. Who would you say has been the stiffest wrestler you've gone in the ring with in your career?
It's this way. I can't say the date, but it was mid '87. Eddie Graham Sports Stadium, Stan Hansen. And like I said, I've never seen him again, or talked to him again. He clotheslined me, and I swear I was back in third grade. You know. You know, back then, man, you went to the sportatorium and you sat outside, and they came out and they would go, you. You go in and help set up the ring, set up the chairs. Then you go back and sit outside. Then they would come out and go, okay, you. And you'd go out there and you'd be obliviated within 4 minutes. And then you had to go sit outside to make sure he took down the ring before they left. So, but really, you know, it's if you like tight, you're fine. You know, but this was like, you know, clothesline, looking for my teeth the next day. So, you know. But I loved it, and I wouldn't change a minute of it. Or like you said, he probably never even remembers it, but you remember stuff like that. So.
Yeah. I mean, Stan was all over Japan, and everywhere basically. And
yeah,
from stuff I heard, he was one of the most hard-hitting guys there. I mean,
and he give you just as much as that he gave, but you had to take it. He wasn't going to give it to you, but you had to take it. Like I said, back then we were so green, brother. We lucky we found the stadium, let alone wrestle in the ring with them. So, but again, it's just a good story to have and talk about.
Of course, yep. What would you personally consider to be a weakness and then a strength of yours in the wrestling business?
When we were brought up in it was, let's start off slow and taper off. You went out there for 20, 30 minutes at no TV, no nothing. So it's, and being a bigger guy, I think we got to stay around because we got to, doing the tsunami splash off the top rope, taking hard bumps. Yeah. That was good. But, we were trained in a day that you stayed in your lane. You didn't go into business for yourself. You got paid to do what you're supposed to do, and you went home. Now these guys here, in a 20-minute match, 40, 50 moves between two of us, and now it's 7 minutes and you got 120 moves, and it looks good. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of it when it first started, but working for TNA and seeing that style, it was, I became to like it and enjoy it. So, like to this day, one of the best bumps I've ever seen out of my whole life was but I can't remember. It was Samoa Joe, and I think it was AJ. Oh, yeah. I forgot where we were, and he ran from the concession stand and dove down the stairs about 3 flights and drop kicked AJ. And I was there, and I didn't even know what was happening. And I was one of the guys out, with security, making sure everything was going all right. And I was it's one of the best bumps I ever had because he flew 25, 30 feet down a flight of stairs. And connected. So wow. I've seen a lot of bad stuff and stuff like that, but as in like a oh my god moment, it was definitely Joe doing that. So that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, talking about AJ, I mean, seeing what he's still doing now, I mean, still in the ring at the age he is. I mean, he can't do a lot of the stuff that he did back in the day. I think he's going to be retiring soon.
Yeah, they, like you said, I mean, these guys with TNA, when they came in, they brought it all, doing the X Division, doing the X matches, and taking bumps from, 20 feet in the air right on their back. I mean, it's got to take a toll. And like I said, he's done it all. I mean, he's got to be happy with what he's done. You know what I mean? Because he's definitely, top 10. And people always, rate your wrestlers. I said, you can't, because you're going to tell me a Dusty, Flair. You know what I mean? I'm going to go, then you got to go, Piper, and then you got to go to Stone Cold, and you hit the rock. You got to go with. So to me, there's really, I can't do a Mount Rushmore because if you want to do a Mount Rushmore from the 80s to the 90s, fine. Then you want to do 90s to the 2000s, and then you can get, like you said, it just depends how your style is. Kevin Nash, one of the biggest, best big men there is. Big Show, one of the big men there is. The stuff that they did, but nobody's good. You just got to put it in order and what you think is how you look at it. The best talker, the best worker, the best high spotter. Shawn Michaels. I mean, there's so many things. Owen Hart. I mean, there's so many things you can go by. Jeff Jarrett. A lot of people, like I said, if you ever sat there and watched Jeff Jarrett work, the guy's, always on from A to Z, doesn't miss nothing. It's always tight. And like I said, I know that from him whacking his head in chairs when we're doing the Main Event Mafia stuff. So, but like I said, I wouldn't change it for a world. We're very blessed to be in this business as long as we have, and it's great to go to a show. And like my son Cash, and his buddies Blake and Lane and all these guys, they're 10 years old, and they know every match I've ever had. They go on YouTube and they'll bring up stuff that I didn't even remember even doing, but they get to watch all these generations. And these kids are 10 years old and they're on a trampoline, and they can besides getting hurt if they took a bump, but if they could work a match on a trampoline just by watching the stuff on television. It's just, I told him, I said, Dad, why are you guys moving so slow? And I go, well, that's what we did back then. We didn't do all this other stuff.
Right.
We just, it just wasn't invented, or it wasn't there. You know, like I said, I've been doing a splash since '88. You know, and then like I said, and that kept us around because I've done it at 280 pounds and I've done it at 520. You know, and I always said that's the reason why we got booked, because everybody loves to bump the big man around, and if you can do it well, you're always going to have a job. So again, lucky to be around as long as we have been. So
it's definitely,
I moved my camera. Sorry.
That's fine.
Okay.
There we go.
So, but yeah, it's been, like I told you before, I've probably been asked to do 8 to 15 of these things, and I've always turned them down just because, you know, never was, you know, I always say this, you know, we had I made a living at it for years, and, you know, but you never, like you said, you never crack where you eat, put it that way. So, you know, you never said any of the stories or anything that you were doing, but now, like you said, you know, Dreams were gone for 10 years, and, you know, Jack, you know, he was definitely what Blackjack Mulligan. I mean, he was, you know, been on up and down the road with him, and he took us everywhere he went, you know, stuff like that. And that's the stuff, you know, it's that you'll never forget, because that's the way it was back then. I mean,
right.
If you go back to Florida Championship Wrestling, and I won't mention any names, but you'll go back there and you'll see in the last 15 years, you'll see 30, you know, #1 wrestlers that wrestled for, you know, WWE that were, you know, enhancement guys that you wouldn't even, if you looked at them, you're like, who is that? And like I said, it's just a great revolving door how people can come in and out of this business. You know, if you take it serious and you live it and you love it. And, you know, I was very blessed to have restaurants, so I got to go everywhere and do everything. And like I said, I do, you know, whatever they asked, we did. So that's another reason I think we got to stay around for so long.
Right. Yeah.
We started, me, Bruno Sassi, and Dan Ackerman. We started CCW. Yep. And, you know, then, of course, we got older. Danny's been with us since day one. So, and actually he was just on AEW doing the lawyer for MJF. He's the original owner of CCW. So he stayed in it, still loves it, and does it to this day. So it's pretty cool. Like you said, you know, the friendships you make. You know, we trained MVP, you know, and CCW, and like you said, every time he's around, he's always, hey, you guys want to come to the show? Hey, I'm going to come. He came to my restaurant just to meet my son, and you know, it's just these guys that you make a lifelong friendships with. And like I said, it's nice when you can pick up the phone. I can call Pritchard, or I can call Jimmy Hart, I can call Sting, and call Bubba, call everybody, and they'll take the call, and that's the best feeling in the world. You know, like you said, when you're, like I said, we always say the family of wrestling. If you get along, it's like a lifetime of friendship, even if you only see each other twice in 5 years. But just knowing that the relationship is there is cool.
Right. So you and go ahead.
I don't know if I lost you. Okay, there you go.
Oh, okay. So you and Sassy trained together. So what was how did you guys form a team, and what made you guys want to become a team and then later get into TNA together?
Yeah. We were actually, I was wrestling with another gentleman named Tim Parker. He wrestled for Florida and wrestled for WCW. And then I don't know, you know, it was a short-lived gimmick. He did Bongo the Caveman up in WCW. Basically, he looked like Fred Flintstone, but like a caveman. And so he broke up our tag team because we wrestled for IWF, you know, in the 90s, which was, you know, like you said, Eddie Mansfield, Chuck Blackford, and Herb Hennessy. And he left. So I left, and I started doing independent stuff. But with IWF, Bruno actually wrestled with Dan Ackerman and Danny Ackerman, but they were called the Bad Boys. Well, Danny just wrecked his back so bad. So when I lost my partner, Bruno and then Danny said, hey, can you come in as the third? And then when I can't work, you know, you step in. And it just kept on going and going, snowball. And, you know, Danny hurt himself, so he had to step away a little bit more than when me and Bruno got together. For independent, we took off. And like you said, we got very blessed and worked for WCW, ECW, and then, you know, WWE for a while. And then when when TNA started, Donnie and Ronnie Harris were there working. So he was like, "Hey, wrestling. We're gonna start wrestling in Universal. You want to come down?" It's like, "Yeah." So we came down, and it's just we got there, and they said, "Hey, you guys want to work behind the scenes until something comes up with wrestling?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." So, and honestly, we went right from into the wrestling into the production part, doing vignettes, sitting in the go position or the gorilla position, with Pritchard and Al Snow and doing the times. And then all of a sudden they go, "Hey, you guys want to wrestle for a little while?" So we wrestle a couple, 3-4 matches, put somebody over. Then we go back, and then we're like doing production again. And then there's a little shake up in TNA where everybody's going tit for tat, firing people. People that love Dixie, people that love Jeff. And so Dixie fires some of Jeff's guys, Jeff will fire some of Dixie's guys, and I don't mean disrespect when I say this. So we got let go, and then 2 days later, Russo called and said, "Hey, guess what? You guys are going to be security for Main Event Mafia," because Kurt was banged up pretty good. And we were just there, like I said, just, again, people comment, and they say, "Well, why didn't these guys do this? And why did you guys do this?" Well, we were taught old school. We're there to put somebody over. We're there to get beat up. And you don't go into business for yourself. Do what they say, and that's it. And then you go. And like so like you said, we were there for 10 years. So I can't say we were 14 or 12 years or something like that. So we can't say we wasn't a bad run. So, we got to travel with them and all over, so it was, it was blessed. Like I said, we were stealing money because we loved the work. So to get paid on top of it was awesome. So, so it was good.
Right.
Yeah. And like I said, all the old WWE, I want to say old, but all the WWE talent that was coming into TNA and rekindling new friendships and making new friendships. And it's, it's awesome because Kevin, Nash was living in Daytona, and we used to go to the same Italian restaurant. I'd see him, and I would tell him thank you, and I'd buy him, or he'd buy me something, and I would say thank you because, to be main event security was great. But also did was stand in the background and walk with Kurt. But it was great because, we got paid, and like you said, we would have did it for nothing. I know people don't like to say that, but we just love the business so much. So it was great to be around, and it was a plus to be on television. So, like I said, I'm sure, I don't know if we would have still been working there or not if they never left to go to Tennessee. So, you know what I mean? But when they left, we stayed. And then, like I said, they went there, and then they went to Canada, which Scott D'Amore did a great job with them. So, so sorry what happened to him with that. But he's got the Maple Leaf going on. So, Scott always lands on his feet. So he's, like I said, another really, really good guy that, people don't know or not. Behind the scenes is just totally two different people, which is great.
Of course. Yeah. If you and or Bruno together could come back for one last match together, or just by yourself, would you, and who would you guys want to go up against?
Love the court. Just anybody, it just goes, into the ground before we would do anything. But I'm still old school, so I would try to, I'm just looking at, one of the biggest pops I've ever heard lately in WWE is when Savio, when they were in Puerto Rico, when he came out. I mean, that's one of the biggest pops, I've heard, even with The Rock coming out. No offense to The Rock, but it's just like when we went to Puerto Rico and we lived there and we wrestled, it's really the style of wrestling that he can do. Gable, it would be, the guy's just unreal. And, probably, but the guy that does the fingers up and down, wears the mask, just came from AEW.
Yeah, that's Penta. Yeah.
Penta, yeah. I mean, somebody like that, because it's a different style. Because us being big and brute, we can do power moves, but they can also do those moves on us. So it would be a challenge to us to take the bumps and move. So that would be awesome. Of course, like I said, there's so many people. We love the rest. We can only do of our game. back if you're going back, Dog and Kip and Badass, because I think that would be a great match because of the way they both would work the same almost. But besides Kip being the powerhouse, but just that playing around, taking big bumps, bringing the crowd into the match, and then just taking off and let them climax with us all the way until the finish. So that's what going through the moves was never anything Bruno and I like to do. We always love to get the crowd into it and bring them into it, and like you said, and everybody says this, but to have 20,000 people and you can make them stand up, sit down, cheer, cry, go get popcorn. To have that control of an audience, there's another better feeling than that. And it maybe answered your question that well, but like you said, there's, I'm old school. These few guys, God bless them all because they can go. It's a total different style of wrestling.
Of course, yep. If you could go back in time and wrestle anyone that has passed away, who would that be?
I know I'm going to be prejudiced here, but it's going to, Dusty, Andre.
Oh yeah.
The guy. Like I said, Terry Funk. We got to be on shows with those guys, like because Dusty and Terry always were the main event, but we always said, God, we'd have so much fun wrestling them. And like you said, even Owen. We were with WWE when he was there. We never got a chance. Those guys. Like I said, that's who you put yourself against. If you go against Dusty, it's the guy can go an hour, so you got to go with him. You go with Owen. You got to be sharp and catch everything he's throwing and doing. You know what I mean? So it's different. Andre, you just want him to throw you around and and feel good. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Do you usually make friends with most of the guys that you went into the ring with against?
Always. I mean, we were one of the guys. I mean, I assume. There's a lot of people that hated us too because, back it's still to this day, everybody wants their spot. They get jealous if you get somewhere. I mean, we were always lucky enough when we went into a company that we went in and we did the right things that we were taught. How you doing? Shake your hand, sit down. Yes, sir. And then they seen the respect that we had for the business and them. And then it's, hey, you guys want to go? Hey, you guys want to do a run in? Yeah, sure. And next thing you know, then we got a job and we're working. I mean, Puerto Rico was one of them. And God bless Larry Hamilton. Right. Love him to death. He brought us over to Puerto Rico. He goes, oh my God, guys, I got you over to Puerto Rico. We're going to go. It's going to be great. I'm like, cool. We get there and we wrestle like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I think it was. And then they come up to us and they go, you know what? We're going to keep you guys here for like a month. And we're like, we already thought we were going to be here for a month. Oh, no, you guys come for a tryout. We look at Larry and Larry goes, great job, guys. So, but that's the way the business, that's the way the business was back then. You took every shot you can get. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many jobs I quit from 19 to 23 because I had a chance to go wrestle in Alabama for $50 a carload to wrestle at a fair. I say, listen, you can't be off. I quit. And then I get back home and I go find another job. That's just, it's just, 93, then you can really start, wrestling between WCW, WWE, ECW, and a couple of independents that were still around. So you can work 15, 20 days a month if you had to.
Yeah, of course. So for all of the companies that you have wrestled for, which one do you think was like your all-time favorite that you got to wrestle for?
Of course, it's always your dream to wrestle for WWE, because that was your goal back in those days. But the most fun, TNA was great, but WCW was center stage, downtown, working that little loop was always great. You had Jody Hamilton working to go position to grow position, and it was just a time of the older stars still in the business and running a company. And then you're coming up. So WCW, because like I said, we would wrestle with WCW and, we would sit there and play cribbage with Jody right before we have to go out and wrestle. I mean, you know, it's just every night was just you got done wrestling, you went down to the dungeon at the Ramada Inn and sat there and drank a bottle of Jack Daniels with Mick, Haku, and he didn't let you do it. He wouldn't let you leave until the bottles gone. So as in life experiences and having a great time, it was there. WCW, well, of course, CCW, you know, independent that we had, but as in big companies, yeah, WCW, then, you know, TNA, and like I said, became our home after a while. So that was always fun to go out and do.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, definitely where you started was like CCW's somewhere that you will never forget. And then
they've taken it so big. I mean, like so bad. I'm sorry if we just hear this or got the name that works with Danny. But like I said, CCW runs Tennessee the same night, Florida the same night, Carolina the same night. You know what I mean? So it's for an independent, that's, you know, really, really strong. And draw what they draw. You know, they draw, you know, anywhere from 500 to 2,000 people. And that, you know, for a constant independent, that's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What was it like getting to work for ECW? Like, what was like the backstage like, and with all the wrestlers?
Like I said, you know, ECW was you know, when they ran to Florida, you know, the 2-3 times they ran in Florida, we got to go, and God rest his soul, New Jack, you know, Dreamer, you know, these guys that we're all friends with now, but you know, back then it was really, how do I say this with respect, because I loved it. It was like going to your buddy's house and hanging out in the garage. People would walk in, you know, whatever they want. But like you said, as soon as that curtain come on, that music hit, man, they brought the house down. And ECW was fun. You know, we got to go up to Philly a couple times, but mostly just when they came to Florida, we got to work with them. So, you know, I never really got to meet Paulie, you know, because like you said, we were, you know, we were mid-carders or enhancement at the time. So, you know, but everybody was always so nice. You know, again, it's easy if you as simple as that. But if you do anything, do what you're supposed to do. It's what it's supposed to be. You know, fun and entertaining. You know, it's just, we were, like I said, I always say this to everybody. You can't compare 89, 90 to 95, 96, because you just can't do it. You just, you know, it's just, it's two different corporate entities, wildness, who did what did what. Because like you said, it was outlaw basically back then, and that's, you know,
right.
You know what I mean? So just, you got on the show, you were lucky when they used you, and then when they get done with you, they, like I said, man, you'd be sitting in, you know, Washington and go, hey bro, you guys are off the loop. You're like, what? We only got money to get home. You know what I mean? So, but you know, that only happened a couple times to us, so we were lucky. So again, I always say this: we were blessed to be in this business for as long as we have, and the friendships that we made are, to me, mine, or you know, are just lifelong memories, and you know, memories is just the best thing.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, definitely. Since those memories, you know, you can just think of them now, and you know,
that's it. Exactly what it is. Like, thank God my son Cash, like I said, he's 10 years old, and he's going on YouTube and finding all these old videos that you know that we didn't even know were even on there, because YouTube wasn't that big of a thing, you know, when we were wrestling. So it's just cool to share the memories with my son, and his friends love it, so he loves to share the videos. So, you know, Dad gets a little pop when he goes picks the kids up at school, so I'm good with it.
Right. Is there still people that, like, has there been any fans that have recognized you out anywhere?
I tell you what, man, it's any wrestling show, somebody recognizes you. Even from my WWF days, you know, it being the Heartbreakers, you know, but you know, if you go to an AEW show, they the big Rocco from you know what I mean, stuff like that. So at WWE shows, if we go and we sit out, you know, somebody will, at least one or two people will recognize you, even if they, you know, even if you know them for 10 years, they'll be like, like one of the biggest, besides my son being born, was Dusty taking us to his induction of the Hall of Fame. And which was, I mean, took us there, flew us up, put us. I mean, it's probably the highlight of my life besides my son being born. And we walked into Fox Theater and we were going across, and we got to sit with Shelley and Teal and Dakota, and I mean, it was awesome. And we were walking in, and all the way up in the top balcony, about 30, 40 people started going, Phi Delta Slam. I mean, you can't beat that. When did Dusty get inducted? 20 years ago? You know what I mean? 15 years ago, whatever it was. And here it is, and people, and that's what's great about wrestling fans. If they are true wrestling fans, they'll remember, even if they remember you for that 10 seconds I was walking in. About 2 years ago, where I lived, there's a flea market called Renner's Flea Market. And we're walking down the thing one day with my son, and the guy goes, "Oh my God, Big Till!" And I keep walking. My son goes, "Daddy, that guy just called you." And I said, "Who?" The guy goes, "Big Till, the Heartbreakers." This guy had VHSs and CDs, of course, of all the IWF stuff, and he had it all on. And he goes, "Oh, will you sign this for me and everything?" And I'm just going, I'm saying, my son is just, of course, marking out. But it's just, I'm doing it. And it makes you feel good. I mean, like you said, it's been a long time since we've, been in the ring. So, at least, 10 years, Bruno and I are going to do one last match. We already talked about it, but Bruno had his knee done, had his shoulder done. I dropped about 140 pounds. So I told my son, I said, well, I'll wrestle one more time. I said, you may get 1 or 2 bumps out of me, but they're going to be forward, not backwards. So, we're going to do one more match just so my son can watch it. And then, like I said, we'll probably with CCW and right off to the sunset. So, but
nice.
Like they always say, man, wrestlers don't retire. The phone just stops ringing. Any guys my age, I guarantee, if they go somewhere on a weekend, their bag is in the trunk with their gear in it. Guarantee it. So it's my son brings mine, and throws it in the bag, and like you said, I'm not expecting to get in the ring. Don't want to get in the ring. Patty, you got to bring your gear bag. Remember what you told us. I said, yeah, you're right. But like I said, it's just, to sit and listen, the knowledge of these gentlemen that are for us. Being a wrestler, which is great.
Of course, yeah. Were you in ECW during like the mass transit and New Jack incident happened?
No, I wasn't there. We were there when remember Rosie Death Row from WCW? Okay. He's the one that got into it with Mike IRS, or he was whatever he was at WCW. I forgot. That's when we were there. So it was like just a year when they were coming to Florida and wrestling at the Tampa Fairgrounds. So after that, we went up a couple times, and then we started wrestling with other people, and then we, the explosion started, and that, we were working for other companies then. So
okay,
yeah. I wish that would have been awesome. I mean, I feel sorry for the kid that happened, but that's what ECW was. It was hard-nosed grit to the grind. You say you know what you're doing, you get in there and you don't. You got yourself to blame. Regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody watched it, they've seen it, and then you got to understand it's back then it was a fraternity, and that's where these guys, not speaking any names, overs, the respect that you had when you were growing up to do what to do, go do your job and get out and go home, leave it in the ring, no matter what it is. But again, it's no disrespect to any of these guys now, but now there a lot of good schools are popping up. But when they, you say backyard wrestling, not the stuff that you show on TikTok and stuff like that, but everybody had a school. Like, I lived in a neighborhood where I lived, and there literally was 3 schools within a mile of each other in people's backyards. And don't get me wrong, I'd go to them because I got to train in them, but it was just like, hey, thank you. I'm glad you guys are trying to push the business. That's awesome. But you got a guy that's only been in the business 8 months training you. What's he gonna teach you? Punch, kick. That's why we always say, you want to see a wrestler get in a ring, say, give me 5 minutes with no punches and kicks. And then you see, you know what I mean? Then you'll see a worker straight out from the hip.
Right. Yeah, you want to go to somebody that's been in the business and that knows what they're doing than somebody.
Definitely. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And they take you $3,000 and then you're 2 weeks are up. Thanks for stopping by. And then the guy's running shows 2 weeks later and people are getting hurt. Again, I take a little hard to that because, like I said, you got to give your body to the guy you're working. And you got to trust him. You got to trust him. If you can't do it, your wrestling career is going to be shorter than it should be. Yep,
you're not wrong. Do your kids want to get into the wrestling business at all? Has there been
my son? I say my baby's mama, Courtney. She's the greatest mom ever for my son. We're not together, but we share custody of our boy, and we said we never were going to talk about wrestling. And she goes and shows him YouTube of me wrestling, and that was it. Kid's been ate up with it since 5-6 years old. I mean, he knows every move to do, everything. He takes a ladder into the trampoline and does the Spanish fly with one of those wrestling guys that are actually like 5 foot, that you can wrestle with. So he does everything. And I'm just telling him, go, when can I start? I said, buddy, your mom ain't gonna let you start at least, if you're lucky, maybe 16. If not, until you're 18. I said, so you got 6 or 8 more. It's more, talent. You're somebody or you're shows of who we knew, but we got to work, so we made our own way. So, but like I said, if he wants to do it, I told him he needs to go to college first, and then if he wants to get after that, that's fine. But like I said, he's got a gift, and everybody's proud parent, of their children. But this kid's doing stuff now that I wouldn't even do in my prime. So, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So.
Yeah. Sounds like me. I wrestled on the trampoline and still do with the ladder and with like stuff like that, stuffed animals and stuff, and then. You
go to Sky Zone, stuff like that. He goes there and bouncing off the trampolines. I mean, it's. I just sit there and thank God it's all sponges and stuff like that because he should have broke his neck probably 10 times doing the stupid stuff he's doing. But he does it right, so I just calm down, take your time, blah 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 blah. Okay, Daddy. Okay, Daddy. So, like I said, the best part of wrestling now is picking up the phone and calling people. And then get you tickets for AEW or WWE or these big independent shows that have in the last 5 to 7 years top stars on it. So it's always nice. That's so out of the business. That's why I always say the wrestling family always takes care of each other. It's like, hey man, can I get tickets? And next we're backstage or we're forward. I'm just expecting tickets to a WWE show and at least be up in maybe the first level. We're on the ring, we're on the ropes, or we're 2-3 rows back. So it's a beautiful feeling, and having a kid look up at you and go, Daddy, he said hi to you. I said, oh yeah, my good buddy, don't worry about it. So that's a pleasure of being around wrestling now. So that my son gets to enjoy it. Yes, sir. So, like I said, being with TNA, I got a lot of new stuff. Like I said, we talked about the Blue Tilly stuff. I didn't want to do it because, I didn't want to disrespect. Meanie. And I went to Dreamer, and I went to Richards, and I went to Bucci, and I said, hey, I don't want to do this. If it's not you go Tilly, it's fine. And like I said, it was good. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I got the trading card out of it. I still get a little check from TNA once or twice a year for 89 cents for being on it. So, but it's stuff again. How many wrestlers are in the world? 50,000. How many is going to say they got a trading card from a company like TNA? You know what I mean? It's just those little things that make you just love the business so much. You know, and then the camaraderie with the boys. And I always say that a lot of people, like a lot of big names that hate the boy, they hate the word the boys, but that's what we are. That's what it is. Yeah. I mean, that's where, you know, you're not going to do business with somebody that doesn't like you.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's what it is. Oh, Tilly, Bruno, oh, great. They're awesome, bump all over the place. We're good. Oh, these guys, oh, we're not going to win. They get there and they sit there and they don't get to work. Like I said, we're on TV every, you know, our tag team. So it's just like I said, everybody liked to work a big guy that can bump, and that's why we got to be. I think why we got to be around for so long as we did. Excuse me. You know, like I said, one of the you talk about highlights and stuff like that is like when we were TNA, and Booker and Scott had the belts, and they're like, you know, we gotta wrestle somebody, and you know, like you know, Tilly, Bruno, will you go out there? And we're like, yeah. So, and Booker, T, and Scott were awesome. What do you guys want to do? What do you guys want to do? You're TNA champs, you know. And basically, Booker and you know Bruno really does all the matches. I just sit and listen because you know pretty much he's one gets his butt beat, and I come and do all the big stuff, and you know that's it.
Right.
Bruno up. That you know every Scotty and you know 1, 2 1, 2, 3 and like I said in there Booker had back was hurt, so they were like, hey, we'll work together. They're going to work on the rope. I got you know, get to where I don't hurt my back. So I had to go up on one leg to take the bump because if I would have went up full mass, you know, it would probably have hurt himself. But again, man, it's one of the highlights that we got to wrestle him. And, you know, again, lucky to be around to work with these guys. And, you know, and it's great to run into them now because it's, you know, now it's like they're not really working. So you actually get to sit down and talk to them if they're in town. And, you know, like I said, Flair is always great to, you know, talk to. He's always, like you said, it just amazes me because, like you said, when we started wrestling, I'm 21, 22 years old. You know, Flair was be all in WCW, and he would take the time to talk to you. If you worked for the company, he talked to you, and that's like I said, and that's what made it being the voice. If you worked there in the company, they knew you, they respected you, and you know, they gave you a little bit, even if they gave you a chop or a punch. At least you got something in, you know. So it's one of my favorite stories is I always talk about it because Knobs brings it up all the time. We were working center stage, and it was me and a guy named Jeff. He did the Possessor before WWE took it, and. He goes, okay, we're gonna do this, Tilly, but we're gonna take the pin on this guy. And I go, okay. And he goes, so you'll take Pity City? And I just looked at him. I said, guys, I'll take anything in the world. I'll take shake face. This I said, I have a gag reflex, and if you give me that, I'm gonna throw up. I said, but if you guys want that on television, now back then it was Black Jack Mulligan, Mike Graham, you know, Dusty. So it was all those Florida guys. And and so they were all the bookers and stuff like that. And of course, you know, just Knobs. Oh, Ric Flair will take Pity City. You know, Arn Anderson take Pity City, but Tilly can't take Pity City. It's fine, Tilly. Don't worry about it. And I was just like, brother, take the pin on me. Do anything you want with me. I said, I just can't. And then, like you said, and they didn't take it on me, and then they didn't take the pin on me. They threw me out. So I was kind of like, oh, thank you, because that elbow. That elbow caved your chest in. when he laid it in, oh God, he came right. He made sure he didn't hit his hip. He made sure he came right across your body, right across here, and you felt it. So, but again, you know, right now, you know, he's not, you know, he's getting better with his infection in his leg, and you know, he's one of the guys that made wrestling fun to be around when you're around them. It was great. we thought we were going to have a program with them in TNA. They were going to try to have us wrestle more as the Main Event Mafia, but then something happened and they squashed it. Which, it happened. We were probably going to do maybe 5 or 6 things with TNA, but it got kind of squashed or put to the back. But Russo, again, people crap on Vince. Guy was nothing but A-tier, respectful, and took care of Bruno and I. Like you said, we loved working for TNA. Dixie was great with us. Jeff was great with us. Eric, when he was there, was great with us. It was, it was a good situation for us. I'm sorry that it ended because it was, it was really good. It just, at that time, like I said, Tony's doing the same thing with AEW. When he first started with Cody and all these guys, they went in there and they signed everybody off the internet like Dixie did. But it was a different era, different type, different style. It worked for AEW, but it didn't work for TNA. In my opinion. So
right,
we were around, So, but like I said, it's again being around the business. I've just been blessed and very happy that we got to be involved in it and do what we got to do. So it was pretty cool.
Of course, yep.
Like you said, I was totally surprised when I heard from you because, like I said, I've been asked. I just never was interested in doing them because I've listened to them and I'm like, oh, they just set these guys up and they know they're going to get land-based with a question that's going to bring heat or bring something. But like I said, I've always taught never to go to business for yourself. Always did that. And like you said, my mentor, Dream, even though I had a lot of good ones growing up, but Dream took us under his wing and he really took care of us. And like I said, undying love for him and his family. Dustin, the kids, the grandkids, Dakota, it's all Cody. Everybody's always been so good to us when they see us. So again, blessed. Miss him every day. I almost don't want to tear up thinking about it, but like you said, the guy was just a ray of sunshine. If you were on his good side, if you were on his bad side, you've seen that way too many times. Not with us, but with other people. So, but like I said, the guys, to me, like you said, years of Mount Rushmore. Dusty's on it. Flair's on it. You're gonna go. You're gonna stay. Arn Anderson's on it. I'm just doing that years. Terry Blanchard. One of the greatest interviews I heard. He go, brother, I worked Dusty every night in the main event. I got beat every night, but I got paid. He goes, everybody's like, why are you getting jobbed every night? I'm not, brother. I'm a main event wrestling in front of 10,000 people every night, getting beat by Dusty. You think that was a bad thing? No. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It was different business back then than it is today. You know what I mean? So, but it's going. It's going in the right. I think it's going. The guys are making money. They're not on. With TKO taking them over, they're not on the road like they used to. I don't think they're even doing house shows anymore. I think it's just television. I mean, with Christ, they got 7 different shows between the internet and and SmackDown and Raw and Evolve and Next. But again, it just goes to show how many people like I said, how many people they got under contract? 150, 200 people. I mean, hell, AEW's probably just got 200-300 with Ring of Honor. Like that's the only thing. That's the only thing I can ever say negative. I hope God never gets me out of no tickets. Like I said, I just wish when they run a storyline, they would just run it more than 2-3 weeks, and then you don't see the guys for a month, and then they come back on. You're like, where the hell? When did he get back? I haven't seen him for I'm like, and then like you said, Moxley, like you said, man, he's just coming out of he didn't have to come out of the show. He's always out of it, but what he's doing and taking the bumps he's taking and all the stuff he's doing, giving his body up for AEW, and like you said, that's how you make money, and that's how you get to climb the ladder. Pay for all your mistakes later in life, but have fun where you can do it. Like you said, they all say, is he going to end up in WWE? My opinion, yeah, everybody does. That's what I said was great about Vince. He didn't care what you did. If he can make money and do business with you, he's going to bring you in and do it. Yeah, that's just what it is.
Yep. Totally agree. Definitely seeing all the stuff Vince did back in the day with all his storylines and stuff. I mean, yeah, he would do anything.
everybody said, who's the biggest heel out of everything? Me and Bruno always say Darth Vader. But the biggest heel ever in the wrestling business is Vince McMahon. And now Paul Heyman's come right behind him and took his spot. You know what I mean? I mean, Vince, you just think of the stuff he did back then, what he wouldn't do and what he would do and what he's been doing and the heat and, all the personal stuff that's going on with him. None of my business. Don't care. But the guy was great for wrestling. Because every year, every, like you said, if his dad seen what he was doing, he'd roll over in his grave. But Vince has taken every hit, every turn, there's Monday Night Wars, everything, mortgaging his house to keep the business going, Bret Hart, this, that, and all this other stuff. And he made it through everything, and he bought everybody out and everything out. And like you said, what he sold it for. Like you said, they all say the rumor is, I hear it too, but he had to have a non-compete. You would think at least for 5 years. But if Vince is still living and he can open a wrestling federation, I'd be the first in line to buy stock because it's gonna make money. That's all the guy does. The guy just, regardless what you think and what it is, like you said, I sat there and like I said, these are the stories that I don't like to tell because it's not bad. But like I said, I sat there at center stage. Somehow I'm playing because Rummy's a big game in wrestling with all the older wrestlers, and even some of the younger ones. Somehow I got stuck in center stage with Sting playing Rummy. Everybody got kicked out of the locker room and Bischoff was there. And Bischoff goes, I'm going to be the promoter that hands Ted Turner his first dollar in wrestling. Wow. He did, and he did it. And I was sitting there going, okay. You know what I mean? I'm like, I shouldn't be here. And like I said, and I was there when God love him. And like you said, I haven't seen him for like 10 years, but Stone Cold, man, he dressed in the electrical closet because nobody wanted. He didn't want to be around. Nobody wanted him, and the guy was one of the greatest guys out. He had a persona, and you got to start believing in yourself when you're doing that stuff for that long. You know what I mean? But the guy was always polite. And all that was an enhancement for WCW. When I see him in WWE, because we used to go see, because Ken and we dropped the titles to them, and then Jack got him a tryout at WWE, and like Kip, he was Big Sky Kip Montana. That was his name. The guy's famer, and he should be image of what a pro wrestler should look like and act and have the career that he's had at 60. And so, like, even Stinger had it too. But I'm just saying, but I mean, Kip is just the blueprint. Not coming Matt Morgan, but the blueprint of he's just what a wrestler is and what needs to be. The guy's been a part of two of the greatest gimmicks of all time. There's no doubt. Being a part of DX, and you know what I mean? It just being the New Age Outlaws. I mean, that's got to be what? Top 2 out of the top 5 gimmicks? So, long-winded because I really don't talk about wrestling to anybody because a lot of people don't know. And I'll always listen to it. Wrestling's always going to be good. Independent show. Now, where are you out of? Where do you live?
Sorry, you're cutting out. What did you say?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Where do you live? Where do you reside?
Oh, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. So, if you go an independent show tonight or tomorrow, and you look at the people that are there, that's why wrestling will never die. These people who live it, they breathe it. And independents are drawing 400, 500, 600 people. WWE 5 years ago or 7 years ago, we're doing house shows and drawing 1,800 people. It wasn't television, nobody gave a shit. But these independents are drawing 5, 6, 8,000 people. And like that's why I said the wrestling business is more alive now than it's ever been. And like you said, it's pushing, but it's never going to get to the Attitude Era. Yeah, it's just never. I don't think we'll ever reach that again. And you don't need to go R. You don't need to be PG, but you don't need to be. I mean, you can. I mean, I'm going to like it. I love it. But I'm just saying, it's just that you $10,000 to go to WrestleMania to be closest to the ring that they can. Easy.
Yeah, it is.
Big sport. Love wrestling. Love football. Love. Well, I'd rather sit and watch the replays on. Fun, but I mean, it's just the machine. You see, money making machine. Like I said, Tanner White, Rock, they got and they're running. I can't see. I really right now. It's just on a train. It's on a roll, and it's. They're finally getting a lot of talents out there that are independent or on these independent shows on the internet. And these guys are, like I said, being at TNA. When I was there, I mean, 3/4 of the roster was all guys they signed off the internet that I never knew of. But guess what? Everybody else knew of them because they watched it on the internet. Brother, my whole world is my phone. This is my buddy's computer. I don't even own a computer. Everything I own and I have to take care of is on a phone. But like I said, these guys, all AJs, Machine Guns, Bobby Roode, and Beer Money, and all these guys that Chris, all these guys that bled for TNA in the early days. I'm just glad they're all getting their spot and their shot. Now I'm really sorry for Bobby because, like you said, he would have been a major player without blowing his back out. But I'm glad they kept him. And, that he's there and stuff like this. Came in, a lot of people didn't like it, but hey, you got the ratings went up, but then they went down, because of what happened, and what happened with what happened. I'll leave it at that.
Right. Yeah.
So we were, like I said, man, it's I really don't get to talk wrestling, so I know I'm talking a lot, but it's just it's nice to talk to somebody who has the knowledge of what's going on. I'm like, oh no, Tilly, no, this guy's the best, and that. What do you mean he's the best? I don't understand. I don't even know who he is. How is it? Oh, you got to watch the internet show. I'm not watching the internet show to watch wrestling. It's been 80% of my life since I was 19. And like I said, brother, like I said, wrestlers don't retire, man. All that phones go to ring and say, hey, brother, we're doing the Battle Royal. You just want to come out and take a bump? But before you said bump, I'd be in my car already driving there, just to be around it, because it's just something. Even though it's a small 5% of the world that does wrestling, and people are like, what are you talking about? Billions of people in the world, and there's a handful of wrestlers that just it's a carnival. Like started from the carnival, Carney. You talk to somebody, goes, hey, you talk, because I hate to say this, but like you said, but everybody just, we're pulling back the curtain, look at the business. Well, that's great. But, in my day, if you didn't talk Carney when you went to a wrestling show, you didn't work. The guy would walk up to you, I don't know if you ever heard the term or heard it spoke. It's Pigland, but it's broken. It's how the Carnies would talk. Oh, here comes is a Mizark, and they would sit there and talk right in front of you, calling you, an easy mark, and we're going to take all your money, and then talking the Carney to you, and that's where wrestling came out of. Like I said, the most person I really respect, and I respect a lot of people, but the one, and they would, it's Cornette. I mean, that guy's he is what, to me, a lot of people like because I don't like Cornette because he's an old school guy, but the guy's worked for every major promotion and pretty much left on his own because he didn't want to deal with the BS. I mean, we met Corny down in Miami one time, and we were just sitting there one day, he looked at me and he goes, "Got a car?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Want to go to Miami Subs and get some wings and hamburgers?" I'm like, "Yeah." We jumped to the car, got some wings and hamburgers, and that's how we became friends. Then we didn't see him again until he came to TNA 20 years later. And like I said, the guy just talked to us like we were friends for the whole 20 years. Never seen him maybe once since then. And that's what, to me, the business means. And I just really hope it's like that now. Oh, I'm sorry. We went to a CCW show 2 weeks ago. And it was in Kissimmee, Florida. CCW show. Consistent, probably 300-400 people there all the time. And, oh, God, I'm going to have a brain fart now. God, I'm sorry. He's one of the kids, I think, is on Monday Night Raw with the really two built kids, and the ones making you guys always getting the other guy in trouble now and getting beat. Austin Idol. Oh, God, what's his name?
Austin Theory?
Yeah, what's the other guy?
Grayson Waller?
Grayson Waller was at the show. My son walked up to him and go, "Are you Grayson Waller?" And he goes, "Yes, I am." Turned around, took a picture with him, talked to him. Well, 10 years ago, you couldn't do that with any WWE star because they would just walk away from you. I mean, but that's just the way wrestling is becoming now, that you go to these independent stars, you're seeing WWE guys because now they're only doing television. So they're not on the road anymore. So when a wrestling show comes, but it was one of his buddies was on the show, which is cool. But he sat there and taking pictures, shaking hands with everybody, and I'm just like, that's what wrestling is to me. To be on television, I always think if you're a wrestler, heel or babyface, don't come up to them when they're eating dinner. Don't even when they're having a romantic, but just wait your turn and they'll always come to you and talk to you. And if you want to have a conversation with a wrestler, let them talk wrestling.
Right.
Hey, I watch you. Thank you so much. You bring me so much joy. Me and my son love you. Thank you. And that's it. I guarantee that wrestler will come back to you and ask you, well, who's your favorite wrestler? You know what I'm saying? Let them have the conversation with you. But guys go, I've been with Jimmy Hart and Hogan or, Dusty and, all these guys. And you sit there eating dinner. I remember when you picked up Andre Giant and slammed him. The guy, and he's like, oh, thank you, brother. It's, you got it, again, I'm going off on a tangent. But, nowadays, wrestlers are movie stars, if not. And wrestlers are, if they go out, they're 9 times out of 10. You go up to that. Because back in the day, and just walk away. So but now that like you said, it's good, man. Like you said, all the guys in WWE really go out when they're parking their cars, and you guys see all that stuff, and they say hello and hi and sign autographs. It's nice. Even if they do one, they didn't have to do any, but they did it. You know what I mean? So
right.
Well, yeah. So it's just a whole different animal now than it was, 30 years ago. But hey, I've been around it that long, and I love it. So it's always nice to be around it. It's always nice to run into somebody. I think we're going to a first time I'm taking my son up to Village Golf World up in St. Augustine. It's a big Comic-Con for 2 days, and well, it's great because everybody knows they're going to be there, so it's going to be nice. So he'll get to meet the guys that his dad knows and actually take time and say hello to him, and so I'm looking forward to that because, like you said, he's living off my dreams, which is awesome because it makes me, it makes me proud that he respects the business at that young age, and it's pretty good. Tell you, Dad, is it fake? My dad's got to answer that. I don't know. I don't wrestle. It's entertainment, so it's pretty cool. So, but
of course,
it's been a great ride, man. And like I said, I'm hoping, and like you said, everybody goes, you just want that one more. And I go, I was satisfied when I left. I want to do one more for my son. And like you said, it's going to be like a 6 or 8 man. I'm only going to go in there for about 3-4 minutes, and I'm done. So no splash off the top, no splash off the top, nothing like that. But it's just so cool that my son will. I'm hoping that, like you said, he's 8 more years. Who knows what the business is going to be then? They keep taking it to higher and higher and higher and higher. 2-day, SummerSlams, 2-day WrestleManias. So pretty much it's going to be a 3-day event. But like I said, I was kind of you know, because we didn't get to see the Hall of Fame. It wasn't pronounced as it's been over the years, because it was after a show, right after SmackDown. So, you know, they didn't get to do the show until, you know, 10:30. So there wasn't that many people there. You know, it was just really probably friends and family, because they never really showed the audience. So I didn't, you know, but I know by the reaction of the crowd, there wasn't a lot of fans there, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not wrong, but, you know, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't watch it because I was in Vegas myself, so. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he wants to go to like I said, I've been blessed to go to 4 WrestleManias, and like you said, Jimmy Hart's, like you said, if it's in Florida, he's going, you want to go? And you get to go up and see what the families and watch. I mean, you know, I'm hoping, like you said, they come back. You know, like I said, Jimmy's still pushing WWE. He's on the road. He's on the road with WWE, I think. I'm not sure. At least 10 days, 15 days a month. So, or, you know, God bless him. Like I said, 80 years old, and the guy looked like he's still a teenager. That's the guy's honest truth.
Yep. Yep. So, like, out of all the names you have gone under in the wrestling ring, which one, like, means the most to you and, like, is one of your, is, like, your favorite?
My favorite is something that is not even out there. I mean, you may be able to find it. Is when I wrestled for the IWF, was, you know, International Wrestling Federation, you know, with Eddie Mansfield. I did the Heartbreaker gimmick, which was great. But after Timmy left, I got to do a gimmick called Odessa Slim, and it was a masked wrestler, and basically it was, I got to sound like, you know, a Dusty freak, but I got to talk like Dusty. Cowboy hat, the rainbow tank top, the jeans, the green elbow pad or yellow elbow pad, the snakeskin boots, and I got to do that for like 2 years, and I loved it. I just thought it was great, and it just stopped because, you know, IWF ran its course, and then I started wrestling, you know, with, you know, Bruno, because Bruno wrestled with Danny, and then me and Bruno got together, and that's when it ended. Of course, Main Event Mafia was great, but, you know, Phi Delta Slam would be, you know, as a tag team, the best thing I've done. And then singles, you know, I did the Odessa Slim thing, which was really cool, because, like you said, it was an homage to Dusty, you know,
right.
And he finally found out that I did it probably about a couple of years ago before he passed, and he just called me and he goes, "Are you Titty? Are you out of your fucking mind? Are you doing that stupid ass gimmick with a hood and talking like me?" And I was like, that don't sound like me. And it was one of the best times. And when my dad passed away, like I said, Dusty was such a big part of my life and career. My dad passed away, and then Dusty passed away like 3 months later, and it was. It really, you know, it really took me hard, because when my dad passed, Dusty was going through his stuff, which wasn't public knowledge, and he's like, you know, Tilly, you know, I'm going through my own troubles. I said, I know, Dream, and I love you. He goes, I love you too. I got a couple pictures of him and Terry Taylor, you know, from Next sent to me, and then, like you said, then when he got sick at home, and, you know, when he collapsed and everything like that, it's just. It was, like you said, it was like losing my dad all over again. So it was, you know, he was good to us, good man, great family. Like I said, you know, they owe nothing to me. And like I said, every time I call or say hello, they always pick up the phone and, hey, what's up? Or text me, or I text them, they text me right back. So it's a nice feeling, you know, just like you said, to have that man, you know, in my mind, you know, help me in my career and do a lot of stuff with us. And like I said, losing to me at an early age like that, you know, it was a shocker. And like I said, losing my dad and losing him, man, it took me a little while to, you know, to put a smile on my face with anything. But he's true. Like I said, my dad truly misses those dreams. I mean, the people that he's touched with that school and the students, you know, like you said, his favorite was God. See, I can't brain fart because I watch it, but I don't watch that much. The girl with the long hair that swings the hair. Yeah, that was one.
Oh,
of
Bianca Belair.
Yeah, Bianca. He was one of his favorites. Was her. You know, and it just, you know, you could see it in her. You can see a lot. You know, like you said, if you really watch wrestling, and you know who the trainers are, you can see. You know, Shawn Michaels is somebody. You can see Dusty is somebody. You can see, you know what I mean? You can see the trainers that are up there. And you can see that their influence and their what they do. It takes a lot to know that. Not that I'm a brainiac, but when you watch these guys on television and when you get to actually work them, and then when you see somebody they train, you can see the way they talk, by the way they walk, by the way they emphasize words. You can just see, excuse me, where all that's coming from. So, you know, again,
yeah.
I said it before. Blessed to be in the business. Blessed to all the people that I know, and you know, it was a great time. Like I said, we did the fraternity gimmick. Like you said, it was a great fraternity of boys. You know, the guys, the girls. You know, the girls just party as hard as the guys did. You know what I mean? So it was just like you said, it was just a different time, a different place from the 80s and the 90s. So, but I was glad I was part of it.
Yep, definitely. Where did the nickname Bro come from, and did you like it?
Bro?
Yeah.
Brother Bruno or Brother Tilly? Or is that what you mean?
Yeah, there was something where you had like the nickname Bro.
Well, it could have been Brother Bruno and, you know, Phi Delta Slam. Like I said, a fan mailed this to me like 2 months ago. So, wow. Brother Tilly, Brother Bruno. So that's where that came from. That's the only thing I know that Bro came from. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think it came from. So, I mean, we probably sold Phi Delta Slam shirts that say Brother Bruno, and on the back it says "Eat Me," and it has the paddles from the fraternity.
Oh yeah.
We would go to independent shows and stuff like that. And we'd bring 50 T-shirts, and they'd be sold out by the admission because it just said "Eat Me" on the back, and it was, you know, kind of good. Like I said, our gimmick was paired. And Brother Bluto. That was the original names, and it really didn't really catch on. So everybody knows that's Tilly and Bruno. So that's why we just adapted to the Tilly Bruno thing.
Right. Who was one wrestler that you never got to get into the ring with in any company that you wished you could have?
Starting, you know, from the beginning, and I'd love you know, to get in the ring with Malenko would have been awesome. You know, and then, you know, of course, Terry Funk. Dory Funk, I got to be at a fair. I got to be in a battle royal with him. You know, which is, you know, of course, you know, not that I think not egotistical, not the word, but every time a guy would come in that was a big star and come in, you know, I'd always make sure I was in a match with them or interfering where, you know, I got beat up by Terry Funk, or I got beat up by Dory Funk, or I got beat up, you know what I mean? You know, so that you know, stuff like that, like the old school stuff. Yeah, I would love to get, even though I knew him and we were good friends, and I got to see him a day before he passed away. It was Mike Graham. I had a bar down in Daytona, and he was down there he was there for Bike Week, and like you said, he came in to see me, and that afternoon, you know, it was you know, but you know, a lot of the older guys, like I said, I got to be. I hate to say older guys because they hate it, but you know, I got to be in there with Dusty and Jack and Bugsy McGraw. You know what I mean? Those guys were Florida wrestling to me. So you know what I mean? It's and Tyree Pride, Dick Slater. You know what I mean? You know, it's just you know, of course I'm having a brain fart talking, but you know, to be in the ring with those guys at 20 years old, 21 years old, and being the guys you watched since you were 11 until you got into the business, and you're actually in the ring with them was always important. Always, you know, and we were always blessed that we got to work. Usually, if they brought somebody, shot somebody in, or you know, a legend came in, we always got to work with them, either tagged with them or went against them. So it was always a pleasure. So
Definitely. What is a funny, crazy, or interesting, like, on the road story you can tell from your time in TNA, WWF, WCW, ECW, any company?
Honestly, bro, I would a lot. There's not one that I can probably tell that I wouldn't get heat from if I got out. There was always a lifelong memory made, and anybody, anybody that we worked for more than 6 months. Puerto Rico, we went to jail for. Working for the WCW in Atlanta at the dungeon. The stuff went. I mean, it's just again, it's respect because, like I said, a lot of it's not PG. So, but there's always been a story. There's always been one of the best things I ever had happen. And I'll say the name, and he'll know what it. It was Dustin. We were in, I think, Chicago, and we were at the Horizon or whatever Rosemont or wherever it was, and all I can say is jiggle, because like I said, I can't give it away out of respect for him and his family. But like you said,
I understand.
When you hear stories, it's 30 times worse. Guarantee you, you're just getting the PG version. And like I said, that's usually like when the guys call me, they want me to tell the stories because evidently my name comes up in about probably 50, 60 things that shouldn't be talked about. And I politely say, that's got to stay close to the heart. I apologize, but they're not like little jokes and quips and stuff. It is times 100. Anything that's it's good. Today you'd be like, oh my God, but back then it was like, oh, that's cool. But like I said, out of respect for the guys I know, I got to plead the fifth. I'm sorry.
No, I totally understand. Yeah. Who were like some of your top favorite wrestlers to work with?
Again, like I said, it's going to be in those late 80s, 90s, because like I said, a lot of the top stars were coming off with WCW, WWE. So when we go wrestle, independents, I believe it or not, man, Tyree Pride, Dick Slater, working those guys over in the Bahamas, I mean, so easy. And so just, you didn't even know they would touch you. They were so light. And, just the older guys. Now I got to work, we got to work some of the newer guys and stuff, and they're fun, but like I said, it's just a different style. And that's what, we worked Booker and Scotty. 5-minute match, great match. Had one of the biggest pops as Mick Foley said it, in TNA history, with me going up to the top rope and hitting the splash. And like you said, working, if they work with you, it's great. But like you said, just the older guys, and I hate to say older guys, but it's just fun to work with because they want to work but they want to have fun. And that's the biggest thing. It's the Dick Slaters and the Dusties and the Blackjacks and Bugsy. It's that whole Mike Graham and Steve Kern. All those Florida guys, man, that were just, if he did Doink the Clown, or he did, Fantastics, or he did when he did the Gator gimmick. I mean, Steve Kern was always fun to work, but you just never knew what was going to happen to you. Something was going to happen to you where you would, you roll it off as a good time, but it's just the older guys. The newer guys are still great, but like I said, man, all right, we're going to get in the ring, and I'm going to do the Hurricane Rob, and I'm going to come up, and I'm going to give you another leg drop, and then I'm going to give you a drop kick, and then I'm going to give you a drop toe hold, and I'm going to come up with a Boston Crab, and then I'm going to give you a drop kick. And I'm like, bro, you're going to get up a drop kick me, and that's about it. Yeah, like I said, I don't think even in my prime I could get up and do those spots because that's not the way we were trained. And that's a lot of people, you look at Stone Cold. God bless him, man. Same thing all the way to now. And that's what people want. I mean, you got the endurance, but they want to see you beat the hell out of somebody. They don't, but like I said, all the moves now are great to watch, but I would love to wrestle these guys today. But what are we going to do? What are they going to do with me? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's such a different style of wrestling, and I tried not to leave anybody out, but, got to work with Kurt, got to work with Mick, got to work with all these guys. And and it was awesome. Because it's old school, nice and slow, beat the hell out of you, elbows, take a chair shot, punch, blah blah blah, get up, get you again, and it's nice and easy working because it's at a pace. You work at their pace. If you ever watch the new guys work the older guys, it's like they're waiting on they're working on the superstars to catch up to the younger guys because nobody moves that fast. You gotta see Flair and Dusty do 60 minutes and do all those moves. Those guys do moves in 10 minutes that Flair and Dusty do in 60. You know what I mean? So it's just a different type of wrestling. All the guys that are seasoned are great to work with again because it's fun. It's a good time. It's a great story afterwards that you can tell, and that's again the difference between now and then.
Agreed. Yes.
Like I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to be 60 in September. You know what I mean? So I was wrestling in my 50s, and I loved it. Yeah, I always say I still got my baby fat. It makes me look young. But you know what I mean? But like I said, it's just, it's a different time, and I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it because they're pushing the right guys in WWE, the ones you want to see, and then they come and they still keep the other guys relevant, either in interviews or in, or vignettes or something. Know that hey, we're still here, but we're pushing these 5 people right now, and this is what we're going to do. So,
yeah. Who did you like doing security for more? Was it Main Event Mafia or Mick Foley? Was there more opportunities? And
it was awesome because we were supposed to actually go. We were actually supposed to start going with Hogan because he was going through. He was going through the airports and he couldn't get through, and they would stick one of the referees with him. Hogan's like, bro, I need to have Bruno and Tilly with me to go because we're getting off the plane and I'm getting mobbed and I can't even get out of the airport. But we never returned. But again, being with Kurt is probably one of the funnest things after because when we were doing his security, we were with him, until we took him to the hotel. So we were at the show, we went out to eat, we did this, and then when we dropped him off at the hotel, that's when it stopped. It was a shoot work at the same time. So but like you said, it's Kurt was always a good time, nice laid back. Mick was always, one of the greatest minds. People say whatever, one of the greatest minds in wrestling. The way he, first of all, gave up his body, but the way he thinks, it was always fun because he'd always. You mind if these guys hit you before they get to me? Mick, whatever. That security stuff we didn't with Kurt than anything. The situation you look, he needed a little bit outside of security than he also did with the show. So, So yeah, it's again one of those stories can't share, but it was again it was security needed to be with him, put it that way. So
yeah. In 2009, when you and Bruno returned, whose idea was it to rename you Big Rocco? Because you first were named Tilly, and this was when you guys went to Main Event Mafia's security.
Yeah, and that's basically what it was. So you say Main Event Mafia, you had to make, since I was bigger than Bruno, we switched the names, but it was just doing the Main Event Mafia. So when the Mafia word stood out, Charlie Boy, Big Rocco, synonymous. So we tea, black. Because when I wrestled Eric, I was 475. So that video, and me and Bruno came down, and then so we got threw him around up and gave me the the Death Valley driver. So because like I said, it was just they were breaking it up Sting came and vignette doing the stuff like trying with us, but like you said, at that time, Sting won, breaking up the Main Event Mafia. Sting was going to do his own thing. Kurt was going to do his own thing. I think what was Scott after that, or was before that? I can't remember. But like I said, they all split up, and Booker, was pushing with the Legends title. So, it was a little hot shot that lasted a year. So it was good. I mean, like I said, we loved it. So it was awesome. But Russo came up with that. I remember Jeff Jarrett called me and goes, "So let's see, you got fired last week, and now you're on a main event of TNA, wrote the Main Event Mafia." I go, "Yeah, not a bad gig, huh?" And he just shook his head because me and him, we always go at it during college football because he's a big Tennessee fan. I'm a big Gator fan, so I don't talk to him all year, but from September to December, we're going at it pretty hard. So, but like I said, I'm glad to see him, and I'm glad to see him in AEW because, like I said, he's still a good talent. People are like, oh, we don't, but he still goes out and puts a show on, man, and people love it. So I, like I said, I have nothing to. Jeff Jarrett, like I said, Dixie when we were there, Eric, Vince, so they all took very good care of us.
Yeah, definitely. Who was the best to work with? Was it Dixie? Was it Scott? Was it Vince? Who was
Russo and Pritchard? Bruce Pritchard and Vince were the easiest to work with because we worked with them. So so we were there for them all the time. Dixie, again, to me, always said hello, always come by and said, hi, didn't have to say nothing to us. I mean, we weren't anybody special. But Dixie was always, like you said, man, I know people want to hear juicy stuff, and I wish I could say something, but, we got there at 8 o'clock in the morning, we got the show, we printed up the show, we put it in for the production meeting, and we sit in the production meeting, and they would cut it all up. Then we would reprint it, then we would go to lunch, then we come back if there was they don't want to do this, or this guy doesn't want to do this, then we go back in, and we write it, and then we do the things, and we go do the vignettes. And then when the show started, like I said, I was in a grow position with Bruce Pritchard or Al Snow after Pritchard left. So, again, it was fun because we were talent and we were backstage production. So we were in everything that was going on. So we knew what to stay away from and we knew what to around. So that's why I say we got along with anybody. If something down was going, we would just turn our head and walk away. Because you were there. No, we weren't. Sorry. Nope. Right. It amazes me. And like you said, again, not trying to get heat or anything. The minds, MINDS minds that were in that brain pool in TNA. Dutch. Just Jeff, Russo and Bischoff and there's so many other people, like I said, and Terry Taylor and these guys that have the mind that's been connected to, Dusty, that was connected to the best angles in wrestling ever. And it just couldn't get the traction where it needed to be. I mean, I was dumbfounded. Because I'd be listening to the greatest ideas in the world and they'd shoot them down. Or, this would do this and the dumbest ideas and they go with it. But like you said, it wasn't my money. And I'm just like, you got the biggest brain trust, Jimmy Cornette. You got all these guys that are just giving you gold. And you let it go. And like you said, not my place to say anything. Not my place to do anything. But like you said, Dixie was in a hard spot, man, because Dixie wanted to be friends with all her personnel, wrestlers. So she got pulled. Yeah. She got pulled 6 ways from Sunday. So you almost got to feel, a little sorry for her because, a lot of stuff, that she said yes to got crushed by, the office.
Right.
We're not doing that. And then, it was a shame because, it's just, if Dixie would have, listened to the right people that were there, And like I said, I'm not mentioning names because everybody was good, but if you would have just hung on to what I thought would have been, maybe it would have maybe got some legs. Because like I said, to me, again, like I said earlier, nothing. Tony, God bless you, Con, having another wrestler, another family for people to go to, but that's what Dixie was trying to do. But back then, it just didn't work. But having Cody and the young guns and the right people that they were begging for an alternative. And like I said, I'll say this, and just doing this, Tony, talking to this gentleman here, AEW the first 2 years, AEW the last 2 years. What are you watching? First 2 years. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're doing good now, but they got a good roster of talent, which they always have, and they're using them. But you watch the next 2 weeks. 8 of those will be gone in Japan, independence. They go for 6 weeks, 2 months. You come back, and like I told you, why did he come back? There's no rhyme or reason for the guy to come back. Everybody loves to see him, but then you put him in an angle for 2 or 3 weeks, then he's gone again. And that's why, what, when I was a kid watching Dusty, and then tape television, Del Mabry in Tampa, probably held 150 people. No bigger than probably your living, no bigger than your house. I mean, it had to be 1,000 square foot. I can't remember. And they would run, Miami, Jacksonville, Orlando. They run to Orlando, Eddie Graham Sports Stadium, and they would draw, back then, 9,000 to 15,000 people or more.
Wow.
Because they would have a half hour to a half hour. I think it was a half hour, maybe not. I think it was a half hour show. And it'd be Kevin Sullivan, Dusty, Cowboy Ron Bass, and all these guys, and Buddha Dean with Nancy, and you'd be sitting there watching. Kevin Sullivan would take out and get the golden spike to Dusty over his eye, and he'd be in the ground like this, and they'd go off the air. And 150 people watched that at the actual, if that many people at the Sportatorium, but then you do 12 to 15,000 people on a Sunday. And look how easy those storylines are.
Yep.
That was it. Dusty, I remember one time, Dusty, we were talking, he worked, again, no offense to, Dixie and everything. Baby kid out working WWE. I got a $300,000 limit per day to do my vignettes. He goes, I come here to TNA and I got $300. And I just, but that's just it has nothing to do with but the saying. Then Dusty would we would go down to Daytona Beach because that's where Kevin Sullivan lived. And they would go, I'd take my old Ford pickup truck with one burnt out headlight, and we would drive on the beach, and Kevin Sullivan and the Purple Haze would come out of the ocean. And he goes, and we would, you know what I mean? And that was your vignette. And draw 12, 13,000 people. That's what I'm saying. The rest, back in the day, that 70s, 80s wrestling of old Florida and Vince Von Erich and, AWA and, all this other stuff was awesome wrestling. And they were drawing that many people off a half-hour television with nothing. And now, like you said, and it's great. I mean, the Bloodline, one of probably the best stories in the last 15 years of wrestling. And they got, and I mean this with respect, they got so many damn Samoans, they could run the Bloodline for freaking another 10 years. I mean, there's five of them right now that I thought they would have signed by now. Or they're signed and they're waiting for Roman to come back or whatever they're doing. But my biggest thing is like I said, it's right now, it's great television. They're telling great stories. They're not, and that's what I said, again, with the other company, they're just not telling stories. I mean, Moxley's in everything because he's a champ, you know what I mean, and a couple other guys. But if you start going down the card, the Young Bucks would come out, even though they're there, but they're wrestling once a month, once every 6 weeks. Then they would come back out on a big, you know what I mean? It's just, again, God bless them. They started their company. They're making money. Every wrestler's dream. But being a fan of wrestling, I want to see storylines where I can invest my time into it and buy the merch for my son, and that we could talk about it all week. It's Friday SmackDown, blah, 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 blah. We got to wait a whole week to see what's going on. You know what I mean? And that's, you know, I think that's why WWE right now is just knocking it deep, and nobody's going to touch him. You know, right. And even if Vince starts over again, you know he's going to get the greatest talent that's out there. But right now the machine that's going, can you stop it? Hunter is on top of his game, and you just can't knock him off, regardless of whoever's running it, think they're running it. You know, Hunter's pulling it, and if they don't like it, they'll tell him. Simple as that. And Hunter's got one of the greatest minds and remembers everybody. We went to Dream's funeral. It was closed, and after it was all over, and he walked right up and he goes, "Oh, you're Tilly and Bruno, man. He always talks about you boys." And I mean, that's, to me, again, I'm very old school. To me, brother, you ain't. Besides Dusty getting incarnated, that's a great respect thing that this man didn't have to do for us. All right, there we are. He didn't have to do for us, and he said, and it's awesome, and that's why I love wrestling so much, man. It's just like you said, the older guys in the old Florida days, and now you see Shawn, X-Pac, and you see DDP, and you see all these guys, and they pop for you, which is great. I mean, you're like, look who it is, and man, you can't get a better feeling, even if it lasts 15 seconds. That are on to the next people. They said it. And that's what's, again, that's why I said I'm so old school that it's ridiculous. But like I said, when I can pick up the phone and wish Sting a happy birthday, or he calls me, and tells me, I got you first, because every year, we call each other like on, the big holidays, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, right. And it's the first one to call each other to say, I got you before you, and like I said, the conversation's 30. All right, love you too, buddy. Bye. Hang up. And that's great. And I mean, I talked to him for another 6 months, but it's just, there. It's just that having that. And maybe I look at it more now because I'm older, and maybe I look at it more now because my son is meeting these guys. Because like you said, Sting was wrestling full time up to what, a year ago? Has it been a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And Bubba, Bubba always does a shout out on his call, on his Sirius show to my son. I mean, stuff like that is just, it's priceless. I couldn't buy that, for my kid. So I live now vicariously through him, and I'm glad I get to show him wrestling. And your dad knows him, and pick up my phone and go, here's his number. Can you text him? I go, you text him. Say, hey, I'm Tilly's son, Cash, and they'll always answer. If I do it, I won't hear from him for 3 days. But whatever.
Right.
So, yeah. So like you said, man, I'm stuck in the old days just because that's where I was trained. That's the way we were taught. Nothing against the new stuff. I wish I could do it, But like I said, in our era, we weren't trained. You got booked because you were a big guy.
Yeah.
We were either 5 years too late or 5 years too early. Because we were booked because when I was with IWF and went to WCW, I was 285. But my last wrestling, I was, like I said, pushing 475, doing the big Rocco thing. And Stu doing the splash off the top rope. So that's what got us on TV, because that's what, you didn't see people do that, You're there? Okay. Right now you got the guy that just came back out from breaking his ankles. What's his name? Brett Strowman.
Yeah.
He just came out and joined Paul and Seth Rollins.
Oh, Bronson Reed.
Yeah, great big guy. To me, I think he's a great big guy. I think he's a perfect fit for, like I said, Rick's kid, Steiner, and what's his name? I just think I think that's a faction that people are going to get behind, and like the mad genius. Yeah. That to me is the number one heel in the business now is Paul Heyman. My opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's been pushes it, so when they come out, you're invested in what's going on. So when Roman Reigns comes out again, who knows when? We're hearing not until, maybe not the next year. I mean, we don't know.
Right.
I mean, like I said, it all depends on who they bring in and what they do. Because I don't know if they're just giving him a break or God forbid if he's ill again. I don't know. But it's like, to me, 2-3 years of him being on top has to be the way. Because really, even with Cody, which he did great, what he done, but Roman Reigns is like, guy can do no wrong. All he's got to do is come out there and point the finger in the air, and that's it. It's just I wrestled for WWE. I want to say 90, maybe 92. They were doing the Florida Loop, so we got to go on the Florida Loop. So me and Bruno got to wrestle the head shrinkers. So up in Sika. So I go up to do the Alabama. I go up and do the Alabama Jam. The Bobby Eaton. They drop off the top rope. I go jump in the air. He rolls out of the way. Boom. I jam my back. I went too close instead of too far.
Oh dang!
Pinned me 1, 2, 3. We go to the back, and he goes, "Oh, thank you, big boss. Oh, thank you." And I'm like, "Oh, no." What's the matter?" I go, "I jammed my back." Oh, so next thing I know, they both pick me up. They throw me on a table. They wrap a towel around my feet and around my neck. They go, hold on. Brother, they yanked me so freaking hard, I thought my spine came out. But they snapped me right back in together. That's what I'm saying. Those stories, like you said, the story of the head the head shrinkers. You remember? Do you guys have residence inns up in Wisconsin? The old residence inns where you had you had 4 condos in a courtyard with a hot tub in the middle. So one time the head shrinkers were there, and one of the midget wrestlers were there wrestling, and head shrinkers tied him up and got 2 poles and stuck him over the sauna and started twirling it like they were barbecuing him. It just did this crazy. That's what I'm saying. Every night there was a story that it's just so outlandish that you couldn't believe it. And that to me was more important, being a wrestler, being around that, and the wrestling was a bonus to do it. So, like again, good times and good stuff.
Wow. So during your time in TNA, there was Tracy Brooks and Trinity, who had to find a tag team to valet. The tag teams, which included you and Bruno, had to wrestle at Destination X. So what was it like getting paired with Trinity, and what was she like as a valet?
Well, let me tell you something. She was awesome. The girl, unbelievably athletic. Just wasn't afraid to do any bumps. She told Donnie to throw her into the crowd. You know what I mean? It was weird because if you watch that match, Trinity came off the top and Donnie actually dropped her and then picked her up and threw her into the crowd. And his brother, she got up and did anything. She was up for anything and everything. And like I said, and the biggest thing is, like I said, I wanted to do the splash off the top of the X. And there were so many. Again, you don't go in business for yourself. There were so many producers back in the back for everybody's match. And just before we went out, he goes, "Tilly, you can't do this splash off the top rope, off the top of the X." She goes, "That's for the X guys. You're not supposed to go that high." It's like, yeah, but I no. I was going to go off the top and hit him, and then the brothers did the turn. One thing with TNA, man, again, it's different times, but everybody got along. The girls with the guys. Everybody hung out with each other. So it wasn't like WWE and stuff where the girls went with the girls and guys went with it back then. But the TNA, man, that was really great because you could be sitting there, Samoa Joe, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, the Guns, and AJ, and everybody be together at the DoubleTree across the street. So everybody hung. That was really nice to see all the boys, and it don't matter. The enhancement guy. them the Dusty used to Red Saloon, which was Mr. Keith Mitchell was the it was called the Red Saloon, the whole night and people would come bring their guitars and harmonicas and bottles of Jack, bottles of Crown, beer, and then we would sit there from 11 o'clock to 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and go to bed and get back to the production at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I've never experienced that one anywhere, so, but, you know, it was good stuff. You know, prayers for Keith Mitchell because he's battling the big C, so hopefully he's doing well still, but it was unreal, man. And we had a guy that used to bring in motorhomes for Dusty. So, because Dusty had to have an office. He had to let everybody know. I mean, he had his office, and that was just shoot. He had his office in the back of the pickup truck, which with Trinity, and and that's what it was. And then this guy started bringing in motorhomes. So the guy would bring a motorhome in and put the awning down and lay down the green thing and put the barbecue, and we'd be sitting in front of there and just like drinking beer. People were playing guitars, and that's why I said that's why TNA was such a great time. Even though WCW was great, but TNA was really a lot of people that got along, and it was good. It was like family, and like you said, and when we left, when they went to Nashville, it was sad.
Yeah.
Sorry. It was sad, like you said, but nobody knew that was gonna, because I was gonna move up there. Me and Bruno were gonna move up there, but what we were told by somebody high up in the company, they all love you guys. He said, but anybody that moves from Florida to Nashville gets let go in the first 6 months. And then so we were kind of like, well, all right, well, me get ready to be a father. I said, well, maybe it's just time to hang it up. So, we hung it up, and I guess about 3 to 6 months in, they sold and went to Canada. And like you said, Scott Demore did wonders with the company. And hopefully he'll do good with the Maple Leaf. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like he's doing great things with that company now, so that's good to see.
Guys just got it, knows it, sees it. A lot of people don't know that he was an enhancement worker back in the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was.
He's just got a great mind for the wrestling and just gets it and understands it and explains to you what it is, and get them to it, and hey, nice seeing you, bye-bye. And that's the way you got to be. Yep. When you go, like you said, it's something everybody talks about going to business for yourself, and you see it, and you're just like, why is he gone? Well, because he did something he shouldn't have done. Nowadays, they don't discipline him or anything. They just go, okay, don't do it again. But before, if they did that business for yourself, you were off TV for 6 months, you didn't get paid, you were done. So
yeah.
So it's a different time now. It's just different time, and sorry, excuse me. Again, like you said, I was proud to be a part of it. I stick up for it every day the rest of my life. That was some of the best times in my life. Just to be a part of every promotion that we work for, big or small. It was just great because you go to these small towns. We got the bleach blonde hair. We're wearing bright clothes, and you walk in and the cops are looking at you and they go, "Oh, you guys on the wrestling poster, right?" Goes, "Oh, we'll give you escort to the." We're like, "Oh, thank you, appreciate." It was a different world and a different time back then.
Yeah.
Whew, excuse me. I'm not tired. I don't know why I'm yawning. But
yeah.
But like it's yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Ahead. I'm making you yawn. I'm sorry. I'm boring.
It's fine. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but if we can get into more of it a little bit. So in August of 2010, you filled in a big spot in TNA during the ECW reunion show, TNA Hardcore Justice 2010, when you took over Blue Meanies' spot, taking the name Blue Tilly, where you, Nova, and Stevie Richards came out during the Tommy Dreamer versus Raven match. What was the reason Blue Meanie couldn't make the show? And
you know what? Honestly, I didn't know. I never asked. You know, I was more worried. Honestly, I was more worried about him being okay with it. You know, but then I got the blessing from all three of them. You know, so I was like, okay, cool. So I'm sorry if I cut you off there.
No, that's fine. Did you like doing it though? Did you like
Loved it.
other
Loved
than
it. Loved it just because not because it was a spot for me, which was great, got paid good, but it was just that Dreamer Booch Richards was okay with me doing it, and me you know, because that's something he earned. That's something he, you know, got his teeth knocked out for in the whole 9 yards. But I heard he was coming and everything was good. And like I heard it was like that afternoon or that morning, said he didn't get on his flight. And they asked if I would step in and do it. And I said I would love to. Thank you. And like I said, got a training card from it. You know, so I got a Blue Tilly trading card. I got a Main Event Mafia trading card, and I got a Phi Delta Slam trading card. So it's pretty cool. So.
Oh yeah, definitely.
My big 98 cents every 4 months that comes in. I don't cash them, so I just put them in an envelope.
Right.
So yeah, being part of the ECW thing was meant a lot. I'm sorry for stepping on you. I mean, because like you said, you know, their legacy, their hard work, their blood, their scars, you know, people dying, you know, I mean, just the brand. It was such a honor for me to be a part of that, and I'm just grateful that they asked me to do it.
Definitely, yeah. Was there any talks of TNA bringing you and/or Bruno back to be the security for the second incarnation of Main Event Mafia, which also had Magnus and Rampage Jackson in 2013?
We you know, of course, you know, when it comes up, people talk more. You know, if you didn't hear from the office, you didn't really, you know, because we didn't know anybody that was writing then. You know what I mean? And like I said, you know, and I'd be honest with you, I think we were still there because we were there at the last taping, which was what, in 2014, right? At Universal. I think so because my son was born in 14, so I think we were there. I think the last taping in. It may have been November of 13, maybe. Maybe that's why they were leaving and we weren't, because I don't think that was taped at Universal. I think that was taped in Nashville. So I remember we got a call about it. Nothing. You know, the rumor was Vince was home writing it. You know what I mean? And Jeff was still a part of it, and this and that. So. You know, we got a little buzz just from our friends and people in the office, but nothing ever came through.
Yeah. So there was a time you and Bruno made a cameo appearance return in TNA during Eric Young's Christmas party comedy segment in 2007. What was it like getting to do that and just getting to take part of that?
Hey, buddy, you know, because Vince was always cool. Vince always goes, you know, Vince always said, hey, do you want to do it? And then Kurt would go, can you guys do the overall thing? And, you know, hey, man, what's going on? Mode here? Yeah. And we're like, yeah, you can do it. And you know, with the, you know, Bruno doing the Animal House, pouring the mustard on him, you know, sitting on the couch. Eric Young, just priceless, you know, coming, the guys, like the Thanksgiving, I don't know if you've seen the Thanksgiving one. That was a good one, too. You know, gosh, I'm sorry, brother. Getting older and getting hit too many head in chairs. She was Carmen in WWE.
Awesome Kong.
Awesome Kong. So she was like, hey, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to do the back, you know. Bruno kind of walked away. I guess he heard about it and he didn't want to get involved in it. And she goes, hey, Tilly. I go, yeah. He goes, hey, I'm going to come look at you two and I'm going to push and I'm going to do that backspin. Do you care? And I'm like, no, I'm good with it. Bro, she hit me so hard that when I fell, my knee popped out.
Oh, wow.
And she hit me so hard and my girth spun around so hard that my knees were still facing this way. and my body was facing this way. So if you ever listen to it, you'll hear and that was my knee popping. But thank God they were able to pop it right back in. But it still hurt for a while. But that, that's probably top 3 of us being in there doing that. And it was like I said, Bruno and I did everything. We were I don't want to say it, but we were company guys, and we were just like, whatever you guys needed to do, we do. And that's what it was. And hey, it's more FaceTime on television. It's more, little residual checks or whatever they do every time they put you on television, But we like you said, we were just lucky to be around it, and that's what we wanted to do. And every skit, it's like, Cornette walks up to us, hey guys, hey Jimmy, what's up? Can you do us a favor? I'm like, what's up? Can you and Bruno go out there and do a job for Matt Morgan? I'm like, yeah, no problem. So that's 1-on-2, and he beats both of you. Yeah, no problem. I mean, that's just the way we were, and we weren't yes men, but we weren't main talent. We were used when they needed it. It's like, here's something. Like I said, it's Dusty has a corral of guys that is probably only 8 to 10. Me and Bruno are one of them. It's called the Posse. That was it had badges with the Texas horns on it, and Posse, Dream Team. And if you were Dusty's boys, you always got taken care of in some way, something, not by Dusty, but the actual Posse. So we haven't been on TV now for 7-8 months. So now this is on Dusty's on his way out. So everybody Dusty hired is going. Prince, I forgot what he was in TNA, but Prince, when he was in WCW, such a good kid too. I can't think of his name. Prince
Mana?
He was in WCW, the Prince, and then he came to TNA. But him, Dustin, me, Bruno, 2 other guys that Dream brought in. So Dusty was, get fired or let go, or he was going to WWE or whatever he did. So we haven't been on television for 7 months. So we're looking at, we're just out. We're not working for the company at all. We just came because it was Dusty's maybe 1 or 2 last nights there. So we went up to talk to him, or, of course, see him. And DDP walks by and gives us the hook and horns, goes, Posse. And we're like, Terry Taylor walks up and goes, you guys got your gear? And we're like, of course, we do. We're like, I think so. Yeah, why? What's up? He goes, you guys need to come out in the main event and jump and try to jump Dallas because DDP's dropping the title to Jeff because Dallas is leaving. Dallas is leaving too. Black Rain's leaving. Dustin. So out of nowhere, if you watch here comes Phi Delta Slam running down the ramp, and I take the diamond cutter off the top rope. Bruno takes it off the second rope. We lay there and we roll out. Jeff gets the pin on DDP. 1, 2, 3, boom, and we're all done. And then we got brought back when they redid the tunnels and they put the baby in heel on each side. And Donnie Harris brought us back, and that's how we got back into the fold with TNA. And that's why I said that's what's always great when you're in the circle. Boys always take care of the boys. So as soon as Donnie got back in there and they were doing the 2 entrants, Donnie goes, "Yeah, you and Bruno, come on back," and that's how we got back in. And like I said, but that was DDP taking care of the Posse. Haven't been on TV in 7 months, and here we come out to do a run-in, and Mike Tenay's like, "What? Why is Phi Delta Slam here? What are they doing here?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're so obscure, we're not even doing. But that was, Dusty had that loyalty, and he had it from us, and he had it from, like you said, you hear Dallas say it a bunch of times. Wasn't for Dream, he wouldn't have. He would have just been a manager the rest of his career. And how many other people said they've given him, their first pretty big break? So that's always a beautiful thing. So that's always a funny story to tell. Because like you said, we got down and we got paid got paid good money for that 30-second run-in. But it was so funny.
Yeah,
Terry Taylor just walked up to us and goes, we walked up to you, and he goes, you guys got your gear? And we're like, well, yeah. And he goes, you guys got me to do a run-in at the end. And we're like, yeah, sure, no problem. And that's what it was. Ran out there, did it. I took the diamond cutter off the top. Bruno took it off the second. We bumped, rolled out, went back, got paid. So, and like you said, and then like 3 weeks later, we were brought back again, you know, to do the heel and the babyface entrance.
Right.
Yeah, so like you said, that's what's great about wrestling, man. It's just, you never say never. As I said, with Vince, but you can do whatever you want to do. But Vince is like, no, if I can make money from you, yeah, let's get him, bring him back, and you know, makes $20 million, $30 million, and then yeah, all right, bye. So whatever. But that's the business. You want to be around it, you got to be in it. Like I said, there's tons of big names that took their ball and went home because they had to drop the bell or they had to do something. And you just sit there, and, you know, with your clipboard and your headset, and you're like, hold on a couple seconds. They'll scratch the vignette. Why? You just walk out the door with the belt. I mean, a lot of big egos back then. I don't know how it is today, but
right.
Back then it was, I'm not, you know, you got to do business. You hear Stone Cold. Why am I going after losing to this guy? Is there money in it? Is there a story? No, we just want, no, I'm not doing it. And, you know, biggest name in wrestling. So, you know what I mean? To the lowest guy in wrestling. You get that decision to walk out or stay there.
Yep.
You know? Yes, sir.
Definitely. Now, where did the Phi Delta Slam name come from? How did that originate?
It originated, like I said, I was doing the Heartbreaker thing, and they were doing the Bad Boy thing. And then when IWF disbanded, Bruno and Danny started doing and it came from Animal House, actually. The movie Animal House has been out forever. They were watching it one day, and they seen the Greek letters, and they started, you know, he was, like you said, they started out as Bruno was Brother D-Day, and Danny was Otter, I think. And then when I came in, I was Brother Bluto, the John Belushi character. So we had the plaid shorts with the Greek letters and the sweatshirts cut off, like, you know, Revenge of the Nerds, you know, how they had the Greek letters across. I mean, and we had the paddles, and we wore togas to, you know, sometimes to the ring, and it caught on like in you know, in the independents. I mean, honestly, we were wrestling like basically almost every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we were wrestling 9 times a month, 10 times a month doing spot, and it just took off like wildfire. And we ran it all. We ran the wheels off it. Like I told when we were there with Vince, I said, doing the Phi Delta Slam thing, brother. I said, we need to do the, you know, we need to do the what's after college when you're a like you said, you're a college fraternity, but then when you're a whatever the hell they call them, I'm sorry. We need to start wearing like the blue blazers with the ties, with the school colors, and being like administrative guys.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. And then, like you said, but we just kept on using it. And then, like you said, we went to the Main Event Mafia thing, and we did that on Independence for a while. And, you know, we did okay with that for a while, so it was good. But then, like you said, it's just, you know, we knew our time was winding down, and I was, you know, I actually had 3 or 4 restaurants at the time, so I always could get away. But then it started getting with the baby coming. You know, Bruno was, you know, he started getting really buried in work because we really weren't doing anything but going in and, you know, doing the production meetings and vignettes, and then we would sit and do nothing for 4 or 5 hours. And then when TV started, we sat back down and we did TV. So we just pretty much it was time to go, ready to go. Hey, you know, next 2 weeks tape is going to be the last. We're moving to Nashville. So we just put in our notice saying we wouldn't, you know, go with the company. We're going to, you know, just step away and say thank you. So that's how Phi Delta Slam / Main Event Mafia rode off into the sunset.
Sweet. And did you, like, at the end, did you start a training school?
You know what? I was never that guy because I was trained. Even with our own school, I stopped going because, like I said, Danny Ackerman, probably one, people don't know, probably one of the greatest trainers ever, and Bruno, and it was down in Miami, and I was there, and I lived up in Orlando, and I would start going to the school, and it was great. I mean, we had 15, 20 students. We had a good school going, and it still goes today. And then, it's run by Gangrel, David. He runs the CCW school. So these are all guys that we made friends with that stay loyal to which is great. And don't get me wrong, having his name there it helps a great deal. But I would go and they would take a bump, and they would get up, and I'd go, well, why don't you guys, teach him, put your elbow in and spin it in and prop it up. Oh, they just don't do that no more. And I'm like, well, wrestling hasn't changed. It helps because you don't have to worry about your elbow breaking or somebody stepping on your hand. You tuck your elbow in, you lean to the right, and your elbow pivots and you pop up. It was stupid shit like that. And I just said, okay, and then, I'm not driving 3 hours to down here to get aggravated. And it wasn't with Danny or anything like that. It's just the kids didn't want to put the work in. And we weren't pushing them. I thought that we should have pushed them. So I was kind of like, because it's like, and they have a business venture, get the guys in, teach them the right way. And if you cut corners or whatever, just because these kids don't want to listen, they want to give you your $3,000 and then they want to go wrestle 3 weeks later. And like you said, we did it right. When we first opened, you got a bag, you got a T-shirt, you got shorts. You came, you were all guys who we did it like we were trained. And it just got, everybody started, and that's why I had it had nothing to do with CCW and that's why I didn't go help train anybody else, because they started skipping the fundamentals of wrestling. Bro, the first time I got in the ring, Hiro Matsuda was at the Sportatorium, and I don't think I think Malenko already passed, I'm not sure, but we were down there and we were in there training, and Matsuda was there in the whole 9 yards, and he goes, okay, we got out of the ring, we're down there, unless you got to it ain't training unless you do 500 Hindu squats, which I barely got through every time. But then you got to do this, then you got to do this, and you got to do this. Then you locked up outside the ring, and then you do this. And then, okay, by the second week, you're there, and he goes, okay, who wants to go first? And hey. He goes, okay, get up in the ring. And he goes, don't go in the ring. I go, okay. So I climb up the steps. I come to the front of the ring where they're all sitting. And he goes, okay, take a bump. And I'm like, in the ring? He goes, no, to the floor. So you couldn't take a bump off the ring to the floor until you did it. And then if you did it, you got to go in the ring and train. And Matsuda stretched everybody that got in that ring. Popped your knee, popped your elbow, popped your fingers. But if you were tough, you came back in. But you had to take a bump from the ring to the floor before you got to go in and train in the ring. You know, and that's what we were told when we first got there. You never got in the ring; you were outside, locking up and doing reverses, and you go, hey, give me 5 minutes outside the ring. No punches, no kicks, no chops, and that's how you learn how to wrestle. Anybody can cook, chop, and punch. You know what I mean? So it's just a different way of training. You watch those kids in that, they just had that Legends of Wrestling and stuff like that. Bubba and Taker and Mickey and and Booker. I only watched 1 or 2 episodes and all that stuff. And I go, to me, I'm like, oh, they're being light on them, because where we were trained, even though those guys, I don't know if you see any of them, they were telling them we're training and this and that, and do the right thing, and why are you doing this? But like you said, everything, and it's great. It's great for television. You get to see really what's going on. But back in the day, man, U.S. Johnny, U.S. Devon and Bubba about Johnny Rods and how they got trained in Philly, in Jersey, and see how, what I mean, see what they tell you. Like you said, it's right. that's why Bubba, I try, and he probably doesn't know this. Like I said, I think Bubba and I are good friends. And like I said, I respect that, I respect the hell out of him. He even actually, like I said, it's the first time I've ever said this out loud. He actually cost me a spot in the office at TNA because he goes, listen, Billy, you can't do that spot. Nobody's going to respect him. He hasn't been in the business long enough, or, and I didn't get to know it about 2 weeks later. And the guy who told me, he goes, are you pissed? I said, you know what? Maybe from somebody else I would be. I said, but I respect Bubba so much. And Devon, I go, if they said it wasn't right, it's not right. And I've never brought it up to Bubba. It's the first time I've ever said it publicly in the last 20 years, except for the person who told me that he said it. And I, like I said, wow. But and then after a while, I said, I get it. I totally get it, because you got an ego in the head to think you're the cat's ass, no matter if you're good or bad. But to hear somebody that's, we're wrestling today because we were on the backs, stepping on the backs of, the Malinkos and the Funks and the Rhodes and, everybody. And then Bubba and the ECW guys come around and they turn the business upside down. And, and like you said, so if you were in the business 1 minute before I got in, you got my undying respect. And that's the way we were taught. And that's the way we were taught. We were taught when we went to a show, and you got Funk on top versus, like I said, Dory or Terry. We were taught to bring in, they were the kings, and you brought in gifts for the kings. You stopped and got a bottle or a 6-pack or food, and you bring it to them in their locker room, and you put it down, and you said thank you, and you walk out. And that's the way we were taught. So that's why I said my different opinion with wrestling is, with like Bubba, probably 98% of what he does, I probably 100% agree with. And I wish they'd be harder on him, because that's the way we were taught. We were taught, right? You didn't get to go in the ring after 3 weeks of training. You had to do 6 weeks, and then, like I said, it took me. I was already in the ring wrestling, but I went down there to train at the school. And like I said, I didn't get in the ring for a week because I had to take that bump off the ring rope to the floor. And I seen that suit pop people's knees out, pop people. It's true. I mean, he did it to Hogan, and he came back. So it's like, again, the business has changed so much. And people say you can say for the worse or the better, but in hindsight, for the fans, for the wrestlers, it's getting better every day. So that's the good thing.
Most definitely, yeah. Now, to start off, finishing off the interview, a couple more questions is:
yes, sir.
What is one thing you would tell your wrestling fans?
But the guys that are still out there, and like I said, once in a while we get any wrestling show that's like you said, AEW, WWE. It's always one or two, and then those will make you feel good. But the biggest thing is, man, I thank everybody that paid a single dollar to come see us wrestle. And like I said, I can honestly say every night that I put my boots on, I got my ring, I gave 100% because I loved it so much. And if I didn't piss you off, or I didn't make you cry, or I didn't make you get out of your chair, I felt like I didn't. It was never a self-loathing thing for me. I just love doing it. So if I wrestled in front of 5 people, which I have 100 times, and I've wrestled in front of 20,000 people 100 times.
Yeah.
And it's the same feeling. You gotta love this business. And like I said, and people say this, if people say they get in this business for the money, the only person I can ever say did that, and like you said, God rest his soul, was like the Warrior. But like you said, everybody I ever met, it is I think wrestling finds you. You don't find wrestling. Somehow you come across wrestling, and it hits you where you're like, man, I think I want to do this. And that's what it was for me. And I'm fine not being a marquee guy. I got no problem not having my name on the marquee. I mean, I've been on 1,000 posters, with the red, the yellow, and the green, faded into. And like I said, I truly, I was supposed to wrestle, and I got to do it for, like I said, I started in '87, and I'm still around wrestling. I still, I've done a couple, I still do some stuff. And good people call us, go, hey, we got a show, you know, in Daytona as an independent. And we're expecting 3,000 people. Can you come and help and, you know, run the back? I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, it's, you know, and I love it. I love you know, I never tell them I do it for free, but I would. I mean, I just love being around it. And I love, not that I have a lot of knowledge, but I love to talk to people, you know, like yourself, and we talk about things, because I don't talk like this with people just because they don't have I can't talk to somebody that thinks that, you know, and I don't mean this in any rude way. You know, I'm trying not to pick up a wrestler. You know, if somebody comes up to me and says, oh, you know, I can't, because I don't want to disrespect anybody. Oh, that's my favorite wrestler. You know, out of WWE, and I'm just like what? You know, and I'm just like, you know, get to know if you're going to talk wrestling with me, know what you're talking about. Because, like I said, here I don't know how long we've been talking, but you know, it's great to talk to somebody that has knowledge or has knowledge of what you did, but that you can talk about it. Because you don't, where am I going to have this conversation with somebody and talk about myself and, you know, talk about the different federations I worked for? And again, blessings. The center stage, like I said, we talked about TNA, but center stage and going to the Ramada Inn and sitting in the dungeon, you know, like I said, Too Cold, Flair, you know, like you said, and Ming and Vader, you know, and Bobby Eaton, and, you know, all these, you know, all these guys. And it's just, you're just sitting there in awe because you've been watching them since you were 10 years old. Now I'm sitting in the ring with them, and I'm drinking beer with them. And I'm wrestling that guy. I wrestled that guy today. You know, I mean, that's a great feeling. Because back then they gave you a little bit. They gave you maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds sometimes, maybe a minute if they liked you. But the rest of them just eating you up. But I have no problem with it. No problem with it. I love the business so much. And, you know, I wish I could do more to give to the business. But like you said, it's you know, there are two major runs right now. Like you said, I don't know if I could have went to work for ECW when all TNA production went. But like I said, I had my restaurants and my son. So, I mean, I think about it, but I made the right call the way I did. But it would have been nice to still stay in it. But to have a child and be on the road with wrestling is really not a life, you know, at that time that I wanted. So.
Yeah, that'd be hard to do.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, for the last question, I asked this question to everybody: do you have any advice for me to become a wrestler?
You know, it's you know, if you asked me this 20 years ago, I'd say, how old are you?
16.
How tall are you? And how tall are you?
I'm 5'8".
5'8", 20 years ago, I'll take your money to train you and say, get out of here. And now, you know, nowadays, if you just got to have the will, and you got to have the understanding that you're going to get shit on, you're going to get lied to, you're going to get taken advantage of. They're going to take your money, and they're going to do everything. Here's a 300-pound guy telling you, but you can ask anybody that knows me. I can go 30, 60 minutes. Back in my day, in my prime, because even though I was overweight, but like I said, I was in the gym every day, hour on the treadmill, and then I didn't do hard weights. I just did novice, just to keep and I swam a lot. So my biggest thing is that you gotta give you know, my biggest thing is I lost a lot of, how do I say this? I lost a lot of good people in my life because of wrestling. Because that was my main, you know, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Just the way a lot of good women that could have been beautiful mothers for my children just didn't care. Wrestling was everything. And you got to give all that up. You know, you're young, so you're good. But like I said, you got to get shape, you know, because like I said, 5'8", you can get a job, but you got to be ripped. Because if not, you just, you know, it's like you said, you can make a living 5'8", 5'9", back in the day, 25 years ago, because there was places to go wrestle. You only got two places to go wrestle right now. So, you know, you can't be. I mean, you think of the landscape in the last 2 years. It's like, when I first started, you could beat that. Overweight, husky, Adrian Adonis. You know what I mean? Playboy Buddy Rose, one of the best big men, heavy men. You know what I mean? You can be big but you see the bumps they took. You see how they had to work. You see how they had to get over. So being big, you had an advantage. But being, don't take this the wrong way, being 5'8", I mean, you're 16, you may get a couple, you may hit 6 foot. I mean, you're 5'11", you know what I mean? But it's just take care of your body. You gotta, I hate to say it, you gotta get that 6 pack. That's just the way it is, because if not, you're just, how do I say this respectfully? One of the top guys now, in one of the biggest angles in WWE. I don't think Mysterio, wears a shirt. He's still a kid. Yeah. He's great, and he works great. And I never thought he was going to take off, but he clicked on with the crowd, and now they love to hate him. Now they're loving him. But my biggest thing is, you see where, you see the royalty where he came from. So you gotta have something that somebody else don't have, and you gotta put the time in. You gotta learn your craft, because guess what? You gotta learn more than a clothesline, a drop kick, a leg drop, a punch, and a slap. And that's what it was really back in the day. But now you gotta learn those 10 moves and 100 more. That's just the way it is. Like I said, every year everything escalates, everything gets better. If you don't put the time in, bro, and get yourself, cardio is your number 1. The way you look is number 2. And number 3 is your gimmick. You get those 3, and somebody will see something in you, I promise you, and do something with you, or at least get you into school and polish you up where they can give you a gimmick. I always tell everybody else I see, the shorts with the tent, Jimmy Hart, saying this for about how long I've known Jimmy. When you dress like the audience, you become the audience, and that's the way people look at you. If I go pay $100 to watch WWE in a nosebleed, and you come out with jorts and a wife beater, Billy Kidman did very well with it, made a lot of money. But nowadays you can't come out like that. You have to have a gimmick. You got to have your gear. It's got to be tailored to you and nobody else. Everybody else, let me put a couple of zigzags. Let me put a little circle. You got to be your own, and it's hard. You got to reinvent. You may reinvent yourself 10 times before you find out who you're going to be in wrestling. Mm-hmm. You're doing the podcast, so you got the passion. You get the drive with it, and just keep going. Because at 16, bro, honestly, for somebody who can look at you, probably 19. And who knows if they've had, I don't even know with some laws, some states I know you got to be 21 to get in the ring. But my biggest thing, you start now, and you just got to be dedicated. That's the biggest thing. And it's at 16, bro, you got girlfriends and sports. You're still in high school, I assume, or whatever. You got so much going on, but when you're ready to go, you'll know, because then, going out, see a movie, doesn't take precedent if you're going to work out.
Right.
Watch the videos. Do what Flair said back in the 80s, 90s. Go to, get a pillow. Practice your punch. Walk by everything and punch it, and see how close you can get. You start on a brick wall on the corner. And you throw your punches. You bust your knuckle open. You busted somebody's jaw open. Hit a pillow and don't dent it, but you can feel the pillow. Right. Learn your craft. You know how many people are making millions and millions of dollars right now and they can't throw a punch in WWE and AEW? WWE and AEW? 50% of the roster can't throw a punch. Watch TV and tell me I'm wrong. And text me and say, Dan, tell me you're right. And that's it, man. If you love the business, bro, enjoy it being a wrestler, enjoy it being a blogger, doing interviews, watching TV, but learn your craft and know it. Start cutting in. I'm just telling you right now, I'm 17 years old. I mean, when I graduated, I was 18. I was in a grocery store at the Piggly Wiggly cutting promos on produce because I had to learn my cadence. I had to do, back then. Let me tell you something, brother. Let me tell you something. That was the go-to. Everybody did. So what? I'm going to come out to these bananas and I'm going to peel you 5 times. It doesn't matter what you say. It's getting your. If you come to wrestling tomorrow night, I'm going to beat you up. What do you think about that? I ain't come to see you. But if you get, okay, babe, I'm coming down here, you got to get your own gimmick, and you don't need to scream.
Yeah.
And it's stupid shit like this. Let me tell you something, brother. Where's my camera? 9 times out of 10, you see somebody do an interview. Where's their hand? In front of the camera, covering your face. You don't need to poke at the camera to let you get your point across. Superstar Billy Graham, boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? Just let me tell you. Look at it. It's just his physique was his gimmick. The tie dye was his gimmick. The big pork chops. In the night. I'm cool. I'm cocky. I'm double hitchhike. Because of course, Kip tried to do it. Did I unplug myself? Am I good? Kip did the rockabilly. Every time I see him, Billy Gunn, I walk by him, I go, "What's up, brother?" And he goes, but he did what he had to do, and like you said, 2 Hall of Fames, could have been in the 3rd one, but he stayed loyal to AEW because, hey, I'm running in the school. My kids are here. I'm here. I go to Raw and do a reunion and disrespect AEW when they're paying them so much money. Even though you would love to see it because everybody wants to see them together, but that's why that guy's still around wrestling. That's why Bubba and them are all still around wrestling because they respect the business and they give it what it needs. And if you're going to make it in this business, that's more important sometimes than anything and anybody or everything you know. And that's what's missing to me. What's missing, but the kids that got it, they've been in that school 2-3 years before they're coming out, or they've been such a hot shot on independence that they can go from an independent straight to the roster like Fatu. Yeah, but he's look at his family, so the pedigree's there. Everything was there, so he was all over the internet, all over TikTok, all over YouTube. So when they shot him in, whew. And like I said, but it's knowing who you are, what potential you can do, and what you can make yourself. Don't get on the gas. Don't become a big chest with toothpick legs. Find your body, work at it hard. Don't cheat, and you're 16, so you're going to gain at least 15, 20 more pounds. Hopefully, you get a couple more inches on you, and then work with what you got, and that's it.
Yeah.
We're fat. Like you said, when I first started in this business, I was 270. I pink, bleach blonde hair, pink tights, pink jacket, took the jacket off with no shirt, had the boobs and everything like that, and I was tan, but I got the heat. Because I'm like, look at me, look at this. I did the Playboy Bunny Rose. Look at me, I'm the best looking thing. And that's what got me over. My work didn't get me over because I'm still learning. I was still learning at that point. But get your time in, take any independent wrestling, and hopefully you work a guy or you have a buddy that you two are going to school and you guys can work together. And you say, hey, it can't be about the pay, when you're starting out. Get to $25 for both of you. Travel, go eat. Like I said, Stone Cold says that, and every wrestler will tell you, we all sat there and went and got $1 can of tuna fish. And how many people can you bring down? I said, well, I can get 4 or 5 guys. I'll give you $50 for the carload. Yes, it was $1.19, $1.25 then. Fill up the gas tank. Mm-hmm. You go to. Everybody gets a can of tuna fish. You put the rest of the money in the gas tank, and then chances are you got to take money out of your pocket to get home. But I wouldn't trade it for the world because that's when you really got to learn your craft. You get to see the people you watch on television, which will happen to you if you stay. If you stay around it, you'll see. Who do I want to imitate? Who do I want to, be after? I mean, no offense, love it. I believe it. John Cena. Do me a favor, rate his work from 1 to 10. The 7 moves that he's got. No, you're not disrespecting him, but
7 probably.
Yeah, 6, 7. How many times the guy been a world champion? 17 times. Because why? He could talk to people. He gets them involved. He brings them in. Everything he does, he brings it in, and that's why the fans love him. You don't have to be the best worker to be the best guy on the roster. And then that's what I'm saying. Wrestling, that's why I love wrestling, because it's open to everybody. If you got the drive and you got the heart, bro, just keep pushing. And even if you like you said, go to the independents and try, and if it works, great. If not, we're making each other fall asleep here. But like you said, if not, if not, like you said, you'll know it's for you and it's not for you. So you know what? I'm a better blogger or YouTuber, or do my things, and I'll watch wrestling from there and I'll enjoy it. Or get in, like you said, you're young enough, right? Your career can, my son could be watching you in 5 more years with me. Go, hey, I know that kid. I did a thing with Blake when I did the thing. Stories. I said, buddy, it's hard to tell you stories because you don't know nobody. You don't know. We tell you, like, man, at age that I'd be sitting there watching Dusty Rhodes, Blackjack Mulligan, Bugsy McGraw, Mike Graham, Tommy Ridd, all these guys, and then 19 years old, 20 years old, I'm in the ring training, and I'm wrestling, and I get to wrestle these guys that I got to watch. Wrestling career go a long time. Yeah, wrestling career go a long time if you get yourself right. So that's my advice. Like I said, it was long, but it's like anything. If you're passionate, you'll find a way to get there. I got lucky. Like I said, I always say I got lucky because, like I said, 5 years too early or 5 years too late. But I got lucky, and I got into that clique with Dusty and all those guys, and like I said, he took us to a lot of places, a lot of shows, and like I said, so that was a blessing. And like you said, and I'm in like 5 wrestlers. If you go on, I'm in like 5 wrestlers books that somebody, Mick Foley, in Dusty's book, The Posse. Bruno and they love that's what, and by the grace of God that we got time. Sometimes you just got to go to Sweden, go to England, go to Puerto Rico's there's a crowd that pay-per-view. My age probably, maybe, and you watch him come out, and if that doesn't get you excited and bring you into wrestling, well, Hogan, a leg drop, a clothesline, and how wrestling evolved from that, and that. Learn to one of the best heels ever in his business, and I know he's up in people's top 5, top 10 with Roddy Piper. Watch him, what he does, how it's it is a shame because he should have been, even though as high as he was in WWE, he should have been higher. But he still had a great career, made a lot of money, and he one of the greatest heels ever, and he doesn't get it. Gets the recognition because of his name, but he should get a lot more. That's about it. I get that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Buddy, it was my pleasure. Again, I apologize for last week or this week, wherever it was. I got stuck in the airport when I came home. So, but I really enjoyed it, man. No. Thank you for, like you said, anything else I can ever, like you said, you got my number. Just, text me, and I'd love to talk to you about other things if you want. But I do appreciate you reaching out to me.
Yeah, maybe sometime we can have Bruno and you on here.
He would love it. Right now, prayers to him. His mother's not doing well, so because I told him, and I said, man, I'm sure if the kid likes me, I'm sure to bring you on. And he's got Bruno. I did a lot of crazy ass things, but I wasn't a tenth of what he did. He is, because like you said, he was. I'd be in my bed at a certain time, and we'd be in TNA, and I'd be him and Kevin Nash be out there drinking gin Bombay to going to the airport, and never went to bed. So like you said, I wasn't a big drinker. So, but like you said, I would love to have you on with us, and we'll definitely maybe tell us a little bit more stories. All right, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I thank you for doing this. It was a
my pleasure, brother. I appreciate you guys keeping the business alive and giving us old timers something to talk about.
Of course.
All right, pal. Well, I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your night.
Oh, buddy. Buddy, it's bedtime for me. Come on. I'm old.
Yeah, I'm going to be going to bed too.
All right, pal. Thank you again, my friend.
All right. Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.